I guess we pretty much have all of us here
Hmm.
that we were waiting, so we can actually start.
Yes.
Um, just a few things before we start.
Hmm.
We would be this is to let everybody know that we would be recording this event, this conversation. That is first, and second is I would like to request everyone who's listening to bear in mind that Anuji is going to be with us. He doesn't have a lot of time. He has spared a couple of hours for us from his very, very busy schedule. So I may not be able to take all the questions from you individually. So if you have any questions, I would like to request you to please send it to Himanshu, and he will ask it on your behalf. And yeah, and we can take it forward from there. So hello everyone once again, and a very, very good evening. Welcome to this very, very special event with one of India's top authors. It is an absolute pleasure and a sheer privilege for me to welcome Anuj Dharji with us this evening. He needs no introduction. He single-handedly waged a fight so that all of us could get as closer to the truth as possible with regards to the life of the first Prime Minister of undivided India. We have begun to understand Netaji's life, his legacies, his struggles, and his challenges with that much more clarity and deep understanding. Now, 2022 is going to be an iconic year for India as we step into our 75th year of independence. It is a big achievement as we celebrate our freedom, our democracy, and our liberty, none of which would have been possible without the sacrifices of our great freedom fighters, and Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose being at the forefront of India's freedom struggle. As we step into 2022, we also celebrate the 125th birth anniversary of Netaji. And my first question to Anuj would be related to this. Anuj, welcome once again, and thank you so
Unmiki,
much for taking.
thank you very much for having me here. This is my first time, so I feel quite, this is quite a special event for me.
Right, and thank you so much. So please share with us what can we hope to achieve as we step into 2022 with regards to the declassification of Netaji's files.
Uh, I would probably think back to 25 years, earlier when the country was observing the 50th anniversary of India's independence. And it happened to be Netaji's 100th birth anniversary. So likewise, and like back in those days, we didn't have, of course, we didn't have social media, even television media was not there. But there's a lot of buzz about Netaji even back then. In fact, so much so there were stories, after a long time in American media about Subhash Bose, that how people of India are rediscovering this person. When Prime Minister Devi Gowda unveiled a statue of Netaji in Parliament House, so there was in fact I would call it scandalous, an article in New York Times, accusing that India is giving a lot of attention to a person who was linked to the Axis in Second World War. But and then there were other good incidents. We had around 1,000 files more or less declassified in 1997, and of course Netaji's birth anniversary was marked. There was a special occasion in Parliament. A lot of people spoke, and I also remember there was a fantastic program in the Red Fort. Atalji was probably the best speaker, and Atalji's now recently I posted a snippet from that lecture which Atalji, because Atalji's link to Netaji goes back quite some long back. Since 60s he had been talking about the issue of Subhash Bose's death. He was instrumental in having his photograph unveiled in Parliament House in 1978. The person chief responsible was Professor Sammo Guha, but Vajpayee was a very good friend of Samargo. So Vajpayee, in a way, was very closely linked to Subhash Chandra Bose in one way or the other, right from 1960s. So here he was in 1997 addressing public in the Red Fort. The speech was censored. He attacked Congress Party. He said Netaji was not given his due. Uh, you know, what happened. Everybody knows. The speech was censored on Doordarshan, but the relevant portion, as far as I'm concerned, because my focus remains right. From the time I was in Hindustan Times, 2000, 2001, when I began inquiring about Netaji's death. So my focus remains Subhash Chandra Bose's death mystery. At the same time, of course, when you talk, you try to discover about the fate of a person, you end up reading something about him as well. So Atal Bihari Vajpayee made a statement, whose meaning I understand very clearly. So anybody who has gone through my book probably they would also understand. He compared Subhash Chandra Bose to Ashwatthama, and that speech is available. I put out that that personal speech in my, on Twitter and Facebook, he compared Netaji with Ashwathama. So we all know, according to our understanding, people talk about Ashwathama was a cursed soul. He's alive till. That's what the feeling about Ashwathama. And Atalji was very careful in choosing words. He was you know a poet, as we all know. He used to measure every word that he used to speak. So I am also privy to some other things he has said about Netaji, but they were in private domain. But this is something which happened publicly. So with this, in mind, what happened like 25 years ago, now we are in a different era completely. Now we are having a formidable social media. Netaji is making news. Well, this government, Prime Minister Modi's government, has done quite a lot about him. A lot of people don't know this thing, as Urmiji has just specified. Netaji's 125th anniversary is next year. This is not this year. We had a program in Calcutta this year, but this is 124th. So 125th is next year, and also we have India's 75th Independence Day celebration. So I imagine and I believe that when we have this strange coincidence of these two momentous events, I believe Netaji is going to be news big time next year, and I would like to take this opportunity to you to put forward what I have to say. But I hope and pray, as I was telling Gurmiji on the phone, some time back, I just hope and pray we don't get the third wave, because right now there's nothing I can do other than using my phone and computer, because there's no way I can go out, do my lectures and talks and so on and so forth. Nothing I can do in the real world. So I hope and pray we don't have a third wave. Things are looking up in Delhi. We don't have any cases where I mean, Delhi is where I stay. So our situation is very good from the corona point of view. I just hope and pray things continue to improve and we are in a good position. So next year will be a very good year for anybody who likes Subhash Bose. So Netaji will be making a lot of news next year.
Um, thank you so much, Anuji, for that explanation. I would like to hand over the mic to Himanshu. Himanshu, do you want to ask the next question to him?
Sure, Urmiji. Thank you so much for giving me the chance. Urmiji, my first question would be, what is the story about the square watch handed over by Pandit Nehru to Bose's family?
Well, it's a very long and winding story. I mean, we need to go to the Subhash Chandra Bose's death mystery. What really happened? Well, in last 20 odd years, so let me give you a long and winding answer, because this becomes a part of a very big, this is a huge jigsaw puzzle. You asked me to explain only one small part of it, so let me draw the contours of the entire story. The in last, see, all of us, even not only us, people who were born much before we were born, right from 1945, 47, people have grown up hearing different stories and theories and claims about Netaji's death, what really happened to him, and there are all kind of claims. A good thing has happened. I mean, this is especially for the benefit of those who have not lived in India for last 2-3 decades. A great change has come about in last, let's say, 15 odd years. Me and my friends are chiefly responsible for it. So we have been able to accumulate a lot of information about Netaji. We have been able to access a lot of data, a lot of declassified stuff in India, in America, in UK, Australia, and so on and so forth. And there's a lot of clarity. So what was possibly in the realm of conjecture and allegation, let's say in 1970s or 80s. For example, there were allegations that Netaji was his war chest, which is known as INA treasure, was stolen. And Subramaniam Swamy, for the first time he come in, public in a big way by leveling this allegation in 1978 that Panditji was responsible for it. Now today, if Panditji were alive, he would be in big trouble, because now we have sufficient data to go to the court against him. But the problem is he's no more alive, so I cannot go to court of law. So a lot of things have become clear. What was in the realm of conjecture and allegation, let's say in 60s, 70s, and 80s, today we do have a lot of data, documentary evidence to back it up. Now the situation has become so clear. I mean, I keep saying everywhere I go that if a question is put to me of that what really happened to Subhash Chandra Bose, I can point it down to bring it down to three possibilities. So these are three options of what really happened to him, and there is no fourth option on table. So I mean, even discussing the other options, there are many like wild goose, wild conspiracy theories which don't make any sense. For example, I don't know for what reason one American came up with a view that he mentioned only in passing, but he said that Subhash Chandra Bose was captured by Americans and shot dead. That's completely nonsense. There's just nothing on record, absolutely nothing, zilch, to show that this was possible, because we do have a lot of data from Second World War. There are humongous number of documents available in all the countries. So what we know now today is very clear that what happened to him. There are three theories. Theory number one, which is the official version, which is backed by government of India, that he died in a plane crash in the present day Taipei city. So the story of watch is connected to that particular story claim. The second claim, which is of course is the India's most notorious conspiracy theory, which is espoused most prominently by uh, uh, Subramanian Swamiji and General G.D. Bakshi ji, and which is to the effect that in Netaji did not die in any plane crash. He was actually alive. He was in Soviet Russia, and at the behest of Pandit Nehru, and God forbid it should be true, but that's what they allege, and even others do it. I mean, I have been talking to people all over the world. In India, in Delhi, you talk to people in the government, you talk to people who have been or who have served in the intelligence. They talk about it very openly. Which what Swamiji is saying publicly is that Netaji was in Russia after his assumed death, and at the behest of Pandit Nehru, Stalin got him killed, and he was tortured to death. So then G.D. Bakshi has all kind of details about it, that he was they put a plastic, something like plastic on his head, and he was smothered or whatever. The third theory, which has come about in recent times, and I'm linked to it very often, is the so-called Gumnami Baba, which of course doesn't make any sense on the face of it. The very name, the title or nomenclature, Gumnami Baba, sounds very off-putting. Even to me, I'm a Delhi wala. I'm Hindi is my mother tongue, but it's off-putting. But here it is. You have the three options. You have the plain cash theory, you have the Russian angle, and you have the so-called Gumnami Baba issue. Now, it is pure simple logic that if one is able to prove, for example, that Netaji did die in Taipei, and it's established beyond any reasonable doubt, obviously the other two theories will not make any sense. They will just fall, they'll tumble. If one is able to establish that no, he was in Russia after his supposed death, obviously the plain story will be out of the picture. And if one is able to establish beyond reasonable doubt, or that he was alive, he was in India in 60s and 70s and 80s, obviously he couldn't have died in either Taipei city or anywhere in Siberia, as General Bakshi and Swamiji's alleged. Of course, eventually came back to India, interrogated and so on. So then he came out of jail. He handed over to Pandit Nehru a watch which he said he had removed from the body of Subhash Bose. It was given to him by the doctors in attendance, and this is what it is. Panditji took and that watch and handed over to the Subhash Bose's family. Now the problem with that are multiple. First of all, Subhash, and this watch was square. Now Netaji was never known to have worn a square watch. He always wore a round watch. In fact, he wore a round gold watch. His mother had gifted him one, so he was. We have his photographs taken few days before the plane crash, and even like all the time he was in Southeast Asia, and before that in Germany. He always wore a round watch. He never wore a square watch. Also, there was a problem. The watch, the straps, the way it appeared, and where the fastener had left the some signs. It probably was worn by somebody who had bigger, thicker, uh, wrist than Subhash Chandra Bose's. So there was a assumption that it was basically Rahman's own watch, because Rahman was a 6 feet tall person. Probably he had his own watch. He tried to pass off as Netaji's watch. So that is like in short the story of the watch. But you have to see in the context of the entire story. So there's the entire story of the plane crash. In the plane crash, there are multiple incidents. One of them is the story of the watch.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Anuji, for that wonderful explanation. My next question would be, with the Pegasus scandal now waging throughout the country,
Huh.
I guess this would be a great time to ask that what exactly do we know about Nehru snooping on Netaji's family? And I mean, I'd be very curious, and I'm sure most of our audiences would also be very
That
interested
that
in
is
knowing that.
something on which I can speak for more than 2 hours. Actually, that's very interesting because I am responsible for that. The Daru stooping thing, I brought it out indirectly.
Okay.
What really happened was, again, I'm sorry, I need to go back. The problem, I cannot give one line answers. I need to go back. You
Yes,
you have read my
please.
book. There's
Please, Anuji,
no
go
way
back.
I can give one line. This is not a television thing where you have to come out with only one liner, which is to put down the other person. You end up having argument. I don't argue. I just present facts. I mean, I have facts, so I'll present facts. It's a long and winding story. So, well, see, the story of snooping. goes back to 2005, because the allegation was made back in, when the story broke in 2015, that Modi government is, selectively leaking documents. Now please understand, Pegasus is an allegation. I have not gone through the details, but what I understand is basically an allegation leveled by different newspapers and Amnesty, whatever. The story of snooping about Subhash Chandra Bose is an established fact. We have official records. We have records including where Panditji's signatures are there. So nobody can dispute snooping happened in the case of Subhash Bose. The Pegasus thing is an allegation which I do not know what is going to happen in future. Now, back in 2005, we didn't have, WhatsApp. We didn't have, either, none of the social media was, probably we had Orkut in those days, but we didn't have all this thing. We, I and few, people got together on Yahoo chat room. One Yahoo chat room we had about Netaji in those days, and we started planning what to do next. How can we take the case forward? We all had, common interest. So my friend Chandrachuk Ghosh, then he was in London, so he came up with the idea that why don't we use the Right to Information Act, because India, enacted what in England and America as Freedom of Information Act. In India, we came up with the RTI Act in 2005. Chandrachur's idea was, why don't we file an application under RTI and seek answers from the government, put questions to them about Subhash Bose, and so on and so forth. I was not in favor of that idea, because I said, look, the government is never going to declare any of these files. They're top secret. They are hostile to the very idea. And anyhow, by 2005, Congress party had come to power. So there was absolutely no chance of their giving any kind of information. Then it struck me, being a journalist, then look, actually it makes a lot of sense, because if the government denies this information, it will be a better story. Media prefers negative stories more than positive stories. If the government denies information, that will be a bigger story. And then we went ahead and we drafted an application, sought some documents from Government of India, Ministry of Home Affairs, filed the application, and we got the negative response within 5-6 days. Then the story was all over media, Times of India. In fact, it made news even in England, if I recall. The Times London spoke to me once, I remember. So this is how this whole thing started. Now, before the Central Information, now what happens under the RTI regime? When you put a question to government and you are not happy or satisfied with the answer given by the government, you can make an appeal before the Central Information Commission. This is also a body set up by Government of India under the Constitution, and they are the ones who will take the final call. So please mind you, the body was set up by the previous government, Dr. Manmohan Singh government. All the appointees were appointed by the then government. So we went to the Information Commission. Now the case was extraordinary because the government behaved awkwardly before the commission. We had first hearing. In the first hearing, the commissioner concerned, Mr. Tiwari, was not actually. He thought we were wasting his time. So we said, why are you filing these kind of cases? Why don't you file something constructive? Ask about present day events. Why are you going after old and dead issues? Anyhow, but the way the government behaved, he became very suspicious. He himself was a former, I think, Secretary of Government of India. He became very, 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 suspicious. In fact, he became very suspicious afterward when he received a letter from the Home Secretary, the Indian Home Secretary, telling him that don't talk about this case, something like this. He became very suspicious. He said, no, this is, I'm very surprised that I am sent a secret letter by the Home Secretary, who is a personal friend of mine. And then he referred this case to for a special hearing, special extraordinary hearing of the full bench of the commission. So usually you go to the Information Commission, you have one commissioner, Information Commissioner, handling a case. But when the case is very special, all the commissioners, 5 or 6 of them, will come together and they'll hold a joint hearing. So this was this happened back, I believe, in July 2005 or 6. I mean, one of these years. Wajat Habibullah ji was the Chief Information Commissioner. Wajat's background is that he used to be in Rajiv Gandhi's PMO. Then he was, I think, he's a former IAS officer. Then he was in Kashmir, posted there. And afterwards, after he was no longer the Information Commissioner, he was made the Minorities Commission Chairman. So I'm giving you all these details just to make underline that these people had no extra grind. They were appointed by the government of the day. And then you have multiple people. For example, you had Professor Tiwari, uh, Padma Subramaniam. I believe she was also former Secretary to Government of India. There was Professor Ansari from Jamia Islamia, and so likewise, these are all government appointees who were there, and and they had no extra grind. They were not specifically pro Netaji. In fact, one of them was pro Nehru because he was a former Nehru Memorial Director. So So we won, in fact, because the Home Ministry did not know what to say when the people came from the Home Ministry. Well, they ended up making a lot of sensational claims. For example, they said we are holding something like 70,000 pages of documents in Home Ministry, some of which are so volatile. If disclosed, it would lead to law and order problem across the country, especially in Bengal, Netaji's home state. And when that happened, the information commissioner were taken aback, and they had no other option but to give order in our favor, me and my friends who had formed a group called Mission Netaji by then. So this, what I'm telling you, is on record. Everything which I'm telling you is on record. So you can go Google it, and you will probably find this order there. And there in the order, of course, they have mentioned this thing. The government is become, is very secretive. They are denying information, and we cannot understand why in this age and time, there should be files about Netaji should be kept classified. So the order of the commission was very clear. We had listed about 202 classified documents. For example, there was a record about the Director of Military Intelligence's report about Mahatma Gandhi's view on Subhash Bose's death. So likewise, we had detailed around 202 documents which we wanted from the government of India, and then government itself accepted that they were holding something like 70,000 pages. So commission's order was to give these people these documents which they have listed. A, two, all these 70,000 pages must be declassified and sent to National Archive. So this order was there in 2006. In response, there was the story in media, Hindustan Times. There was a meeting of the cabinet committee of political affairs, and they took a decision that we have to declassify. And they, out of 202, the government released 91 records. So, for example, the Gandhi record, which I just referred, was not given to us. But they released some other important documents from the Intelligence Bureau and so on and so forth. So, these 91 papers are given to us out of 202. And the with regard to the 70,000 pages, something like 17,000 pages were cleared, and then they were sent to National Archive. Now, usually it takes time. Even in the first world countries, it takes time to process so many hundreds and thousands of pages, and India, of course, lags a little bit behind. So it took a while. The order was eventually cleared in 2010 to take the files from Home Ministry to National Archive. They were sent there in 2012. Then they were processed in the National Archives in Delhi. And it was only in 2014 end, by which time Modi ji had become the Prime Minister, that these files became available for scrutiny or whatever for the researchers. Obviously, I and my friend Chandrachud were the only people aware of this thing, so I went to the National Archive. So this is 2014, towards the end of it. Everything happened in the time of Congress Party, when they were in power. The order of the commission happened in 2006. The government complied with the order in 2010-12, and likewise, but it had taken time for the whole process to finish. So the process finished, and 2014 I was looking at the files in the National Archive. Well, it happens. It has happened even in America. When you declassify, release thousands of pages in one go, you make mistakes. So here one mistake happened. By mistake, I found photocopies of two files. These are not. They were not original files. They were photocopies of two files, and these files were from the local intelligence branch of West Bengal government. And taking a look at them, I could see that it was like a Watergate scandal. They were spying on Subhash Bose's family and so on and so forth. Immediately, I picked up my phone. I called Chandrachud. I called Chandra Kumar Bose, with whom I had very good relation back in those days. Told them, look, this is Watergate scandal. Family didn't understand this thing, by the way. They thought it was a very normal thing. I said, no, this is big. You cannot spy on people like this. And there were clear-cut documents. And thereafter, I wrote an article about it in Swaraj, if I'm not wrong. Then in Daily-O. Daily-O was run by India Today group. And thereafter, India Today contacted me, and Sandeep Onithan met me, who's currently the executive editor. And Sandeep, incidentally, is the link between both Pegasus and Netaji snooping, because he wrote the cover story for Netaji snooping in India Today in 2015 April. And he is also another person who, according to the claims made by the media here and there, in the Pegasus, his name also figures. He was also spied upon. Anyhow, in 2015, the whole story broke India Today, and that was the time I began to get a lot of attention, because before 2015, people used to think I was a crackpot in about Netaji and so on and so forth. It was after 2015 things changed, and for at least 10-15 days, this was the major topmost story of the country. I was on all the channels. Arnab had me for so many, many days after days. I used to sit the whole day in Times Now and give bites, and it was a big story. And then what the story is very simple, straightforward. Sometimes after India became independent, the order was cleared, and they began spying on another story. What most people understand, ki they were spying on Netaji's family. No, they were not spying on Netaji's family alone. They were spying on each and everybody linked to Netaji. They were spying on Subhash Bose's family. They were spying on journalists. They were spying on historians, foreigners. They were spying on any INA veterans, anybody who could have any conceivable link to Netaji was spied upon. I mean, I've given example. For example, and I keep saying, when I was touring America, I was telling them, you talk so much about Watergate scandal. I mean, I give them example. There was a child, ninth grade student, who wrote a letter to Netaji's elder brothers, asking him whether or not Subhash was alive in 1949. So they spied upon him. They went to the intelligence people went to his school, put question on his headmaster, and dutifully, filed a report that this is what this child is saying. So they did not spare anyone, teenagers and bachas and whatnot. And this was happening. What we understood was happening not just in India, not just Calcutta, but outside. And there were stories, started breaking that it was happening in Bombay also, and so on and so forth. And this is probably a pan-India thing. I recall, there was a calculation made by members of Netaji's family that about 14 intelligence officials were chasing their family in Calcutta. Now, to put this figure in perspective, when Americans set up CIA, in CIA they set up a Bin Laden unit. They, according to one claim, they had around 10 officer or 15 or 14. I mean, they have different claims, but 10 to 40. So Americans, set up a CIA. In CIA, they set up Bin Laden unit with, let's say, 40 officers. Back in 1950s, in India, we were having 14 officers to chase just Subhash Bose's family in Calcutta. So think about the money they must have spent, in just snooping, because it takes money. Snooping is not simple. Now I'm getting to hear on television that people think snooping is costly. It was costly even in those days. So you have 14 officers dedicated for this job only in Calcutta, big deal. So this was happening, and then when this happened, interestingly, something interesting happened in London. In the National Archive, the British government declassified one file, which I was able to lay my hand on, thanks, because and according to that file, something very explosive, came, in public light, and it was published all over again. All this snooping thing was published in all major newspapers in India, mainstream, and everybody drew the same conclusion. For example, even the not only the Bose family, even the BJP spokesperson publicly said that this snooping means Netaji was alive. So they were not essentially snooping on family members. They were not snooping on people here and there and children in schools, etc. They were essentially keeping a tab on each and every person, and probably they were wondering ki if Netaji is alive, he will probably contact any of these people. So they were chasing the real person, and this is how the entire dragnet was, it was operating all over the country. So this is something which everybody, I mean, there was no dispute. Times of India Today, everybody said the same line. Look, this means he was alive. In fact, as a result of this India Today cover story, the West Bengal government was compelled to declassify more files. And after reading them, Mamata Banerjee made public statement. It was published all over the world in all media that snooping happened. It is very unfortunate. It means he was alive. So even she publicly said it. This thing, it is a matter of record. It is on front page, so in all media in Calcutta in those days in Bengal. Now the story in London is very, very, very like disturbing. Some of you would recall that when we were growing up, we used to hear conspiracy theory, that when India became free, we had some kind of a secret protocol. We had a transfer of power. Most people call it Independence Day, but all of us know that in 1947 we had a transfer of power, whereby the power was transferred by the British government to the Indian authorities. Panditji became the interim prime minister in 1946, and then in 47 he became the prime minister. So we had a transfer of power, and it's been alleged for quite some time that there were some secret clauses, and people leveled open allegation that one of the secret clause was that Subhash Chandra Bose would, if he comes back to India, if he's found here, he would be handed over to these people, and he would be tried as a war criminal, something like that. So I do not know about that. But one thing became clear in 2015 by fluke when this whole snooping saga was exploding in India. So the files declassified by the British side, now they admit, yes, they were secret clauses. So now I can tell you, if any one of you has not been in India for quite some time, now please be informed that there were secret clauses when transfer power was transferred to the Indians. So we were never told by our government. Nobody ever made a statement in Parliament that we had some kind of secret understanding with British government. Now the secret clause that we know about is that under a secret agreement with the British side, the British set up a security liaison office in Delhi, SLO. And what it did was that they used to send one officer from England who invariably was an old Raj hand, and this person would sit in Delhi secretly. Nobody knew about him. He did not exist. He was there until 1968, and Indian Intelligence Bureau used to go and give him all the information. So we were basically subservient to the British intelligence right up to 1968, passing on all the information to them, and nobody knew about it. Probably only top people knew about it. And in this game, I found that they were supplying information concerning Netaji to the British side. We got letter, which was couple of months after India became free. So not only were they spying on Netaji in India, in free India of Mahatma Gandhi's dreams, they were dutifully passing all that information to the British side. So this snooping, which is about Netaji, is a far more serious thing than this Pegasus, which is basically a allegation as of now. What I've just told you, I've just narrated this entire story. This is all factual, fact on record. It was published. It was in all over the media. But I must add here, the only people who did not react were the people from the BJP and the RSS. They did not react to it. They were all silent. But only one statement was made by the BJP spokesperson that this proves that Netaji was alive. But there was no reaction. I tried to probe this thing further. I filed further right to information applications. I sought more information about it. The government refused to give information. There were demands. There should be an inquiry. This thing, the government gave no answer whatsoever. They did not even respond to those things. At least today they are kind enough when people are leveling these charges of allegation of snooping and whatnot. At least the government of India has made a statement or two in Parliament. But concerning Netaji, they did not utter a single word in Parliament. So, and this is even though that the snooping on Netaji is a factual thing. It's completely factual. You have clear-cut records coming from the intelligence that this snooping happened. So this is what we are facing today.
Absolutely incredible, Anujji. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification so much. I would next like to go to Colonel Mayank Chaube. Colonel, if you have a question or a point to make, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Urmi, for offering me the mic. Thank you, Anuji, for being here.
Thank you, sir.
Uh,
Right.
Anuji, it's a well-known fact that Netaji was very close to the Japanese.
Yeah.
But what a stroke of luck. God has been very kind, sir. We found a doppelganger, sir. Out of 6.4 million people, you could find only a pair. And we found somebody by the name of Ichara Okoro, sir. What is this mystery, sir? Of all people, a
I
doppelganger, Ichara
I,
Okoro.
I tell you, there's no doppelganger. As you correctly said,
Sir,
Netaji was, yeah.
that was intended.
Subhash Bose was close to the Japanese. In fact, he was treated very nice by just about everybody. He left India, as you know, that 1941 he escaped from his house in Calcutta, where he was put under house arrest because he had, and he always wanted to go out of the country and make full use of the Second World War, because there was an understanding within the Congress, as he himself would, that First World War we made a fool of ourselves by supporting the British. Gandhi went and in a way helped the British army and so on and so forth. But and because under the there was an illusion that probably after the war is over, First World War, they will give us some concession. Never happened. We had Jallianwala Bagh. But so there was an understanding in the Congress that once Second World War happens, we will utilize this opportunity to further our interest. So make no mistake, in 1940-41, my grandfather was fought against Subhash Bose. He was part of the British Indian Army. I know it very well. Make no mistake, in 1939, 1940, 41, 43, 44, that point of time, India's basic interest, main interest, national interest, was to become free. It was not to gain Nobel Peace Prize. It was not to seek redressal of problems happening in Europe and America. We had to become free. That was the main priority. So Subhash Bose thought along those lines. So once the Second World War happened, he started building up that thing, and he was very much distressed that Mahatma Gandhi offered his help to the British. Gandhiji very famously said that in this hour of England's peril, we are with them, and they started talking about big things, about defeating Nazism and whatnot. Are your own country is under is reduced to slavery under the British. So what freedom and democracy are you talking about? Anyhow, Subhash Bose goes to he escaped from India. He was in Kabul. He passed to the same area where Bin Laden was hiding. In our times, he was held by the Italians. He was held by Russians. For 10 days he was in Russia. Russians actually pave his way to go to Germany. Otherwise, he would have been captured and killed in Kabul. So fantastic stuff. The way Netaji. I'm sorry, I'm digressing a little bit, but I must. I cannot. You know, then there's a bit of a James Bond connection here. When Subhash Bose escaped from India, there were multiple people who were helping him. So usually when we talk of this whole story about Netaji's escape from India, we get to hear only one name, which is of Netaji's nephew, Shishir Kumar Bose. One reason for it, Shishir Kumar Bose was the only person who talked about it. And number two, Shishir Kumar Bose was probably the only member of family who joined Congress party in those days. So he was the one who, he used to, and he got a lot of importance. But there were a lot of people who helped. There were multiple players. Netaji escaping from Calcutta to Gomo to Delhi to Kabul. So one of the players, one of the persons who helped him was named Bhagat Ram Talwar. Now, Bhagat Ram Talwar helped Subhash Bose escape from Kabul to the Russian border. But Bhagat Ram Talwar died, I believe, 1990s. He was hailed as a freedom fighter, and he used to give lectures in Calcutta and other places. After he was dead and gone, his file opened up in England. And turns out that he had betrayed Subhash Bose. He was spying. He was probably not spying when Netaji was escaping from the country, but afterwards he turned against him. He was passing on information to the British side. His handler in the British intelligence was Peter Fleming, Ian Fleming's elder brother. And as we all know, that Ian created this fictional character of James Bond. He modeled after himself and his brother and so on and so forth. So I keep telling for this little bit of link of Subhash Bose and James Bond. And when Subhash Bose escaped from India, the British intelligence had orders to kill him. So they had never done it for anybody ever. So this story also, these documents are also released some time back, and when Irish historians came to know, and it was published in BBC. So Netaji, wherever he went, he was able to probably to something in his personality. He was treated fine by Germans, he was treated fine by Russians, and of course with Japan, as you said, sir, was treated very much fine. Now, when it died, now the story of Ichiro Okura goes like this. All the documents which are supposed to be about Subhash Chandra Bose's death, the plane crash happened, he was taken to hospital, he was, there was given treatment, and thereafter when he died, he was cremated. Unfortunately, all these records are in the name of Ichiro Okura. There is no Subhash Chandra Bose present in that hospital and crematorium. So the story the Japanese tried to give, this was a fake name given to conceal the whole story because they wanted to keep the whole thing secret. But the whole thing, falls through. It doesn't add up actually. In fact, even the government of India suspects. In '56, there was a secret inquiry done by the Taiwan government at the behest of the British side, and British side had been approached by government of India in secrecy. Even they said the same thing. Look, this does not prove anything. So essentially, Ichiro Okura. So now we had a commission of inquiry recently in India. This is Manoj Kumar Mukherjee Commission. So the conclusion there is very clear. They created a false narrative of Subhash Bose's death. The whole story was cooked up by Japanese and Subhash Chandra Bose. So when they created a false story, so they need to have a body of somebody. So the body of Ichiro Okura was passed off as Netaji's body. That's why there were no photographs of the dead body, and this body was of course was cremated as Netaji's body. So that is why the claim which is made officially that Netaji died in a plane crash in Taiwan, he was cremated there, and he was cremated there, and the remains are lying in a temple in Tokyo today. So these remains, according to Manoj Kumar Mukherjee, are the remains of Ichiro Okura, and from there, follows the logical consequence that the government of India does not want to do a DNA test on them. So I can take a separate question on that also, but so this is how this would happen. So Ichiro Okura actually was somebody whose body was used as Subhash's body as part of Netaji's escape plan.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for clarifying.
Thank you.
Give me the
Thank
mic.
you.
Thank you, Colonel. Thank you, Anuji. Divyaji, next I'm going to come to you. Please ask your question.
श्योर। गुड इवनिंग अनुज जी, मैं इंतजार कर रही थी कुछ लोग और जुड़ जाएं ताकि परफेक्ट टाइमिंग में आपके साथ ही क्वेश्चन पूछूं। अनुज जी, किताबें हमारी बता रही हैं कि आजादी बिना खटक और ढाल के मिल गई और एक परिवार ने दिला दी। मैं
हाँ,
आपसे जानना चाह रही हूँ, नेताजी क्या कर रहे थे उस टाइम?
नेताजी क्या कर रहे थे उस टाइम पे?
हाँ
कौन सी
जी,
कौन
जो
सी
हमारी
पीरियड? हाँ,
नहीं नहीं,
उस
आजादी के
हाँ,
समय जो हमारी किताबें स्कूल की बता रही हैं,
बिल्कुल।
नेताजी बहुत कम है ना उधर।
मैं तो यही उसमें यही कह सकता हूँ कि जैसे फॉर मुझे कलकत्ता में किसी ने ये सवाल पूछा था आज से बहुत साल पहले, अभी जनवरी में वहाँ गया था मैं, तो उनको मैंने तभी बोल दिया था कि किसान भाई हमारे दिल्ली में धरने बैठे हुए हैं और वो धरने पे बैठे हैं और गवर्नमेंट गांधीवादी नेताओं की है इस वक्त। और मैंने कहा ये लोग 50 साल तक धरना कर लेंगे लेकिन गवर्नमेंट अपना बिल वापस नहीं लेगा। धरनेबाजी से कोई बिल विल एक गांधीवादी गवर्नमेंट वापस नहीं लेने वाली। भारत में ऐसे बहुत एग्जाम्पल हैं। हमारा आर्म फोर्सेस एक्ट वहाँ लगा हुआ है मणिपुर में नेशनल सिक्योरिटी के लिए, तो वो आयरन शर्मिला बैठी थी 20 साल तक धरने पे, वहाँ पे गांधीवादी नेता थी वो बहुत बड़ी। वो 20 years शी केप्ट ऑन सिटिंग ऑन अ धरना, गवर्नमेंट डिड नॉट डू एनीथिंग। तो मैं वही आपको बता रहा हूँ कि जब गांधीवादी गवर्नमेंट एक एक बिल वापस लेने को तैयार नहीं है आपके धरने बैठने से, आप मुझे ये चोरियां चेप रहे हो कि वो गांधी बैठा धरने पर और अंग्रेज छोड़ के चले गए यहाँ से। Who are you fooling? It doesn't happen like that. These are all national security matters unless तो वो ये अब इसके सारे डॉक्यूमेंटेशन अगेन पिछले 5 7 8 साल में इतना इंटेलिजेंस का रिकॉर्ड बाहर निकल के आ गया है। इनकी सारी पोल पट्टी खुल गई है कि कैसे भारत के अंदर। देखिए मैं आपको बताता हूँ, मैंने मेरे मेरे ग्रैंडफादर ही फौज में थे, ब्रिटिश आर्मी में। ही फॉट अगेंस्ट द आईएन, ही फॉट अगेंस्ट द जर्मन्स ऑल्सो। मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ कि भारत में अभी कर्नल साहब भी थे साथ में जुड़े हुए हमारे। देखिए भारत में जैसे हम जलियांवाला बाग की बात करते हैं, जलियांवाला बाग में क्या नैरेटिव हमको छिपा जाता है कि साहब वो जनरल डायर नाम का बड़ा खराब आदमी था उसने मरवा दिया। डायर ने नहीं मरवाया, डायर ने सिर्फ ऑर्डर दिया था। मारने वाले हमारे इंडियन आर्मी के लोग थे। जितने लोगों के साथ में आपके लाल बाजार के थाने में कलकत्ता में टॉर्चर हुआ, एंड बिलीव मी यू हमारे बहुत ज़बरदस्त वॉर क्राइम्स हुए, लोगों को बहुत ब्रूटलाइज किया गया था। इवन आपके क्विट इंडिया मूवमेंट के अंदर दे ब्रूटलाइज विमेन लाइक एनीथिंग। कैन यू बिलीव दे मशीन गन पीपल फ्रॉम द प्लेन्स? इट वॉज केप्ट सीक्रेट द होल थिंग। उसके रिकॉर्ड मिल रहे हैं यहाँ से कि आपने मशीन गन से गोलियां चलाई हैं आपने। अगर ये किसी उसने कर दिया होता नाजी जर्मनी में तो ये अभी तक उसको लेकर चीखे मार रहे होते। तो इन्होंने पूरा भारत को जो कंट्रोल कर रखा था राइट फ्रॉम द 1857, वो हमारी इंडियन आर्मी से इन्होंने कब्जे में कर रखा था। और जितने आपके अफसर थे फौज में, जितने राय बहादुर एक्सेट्रा, वो सारे अंग्रेज वो इंडियंस थे। इंडिया वॉज कंट्रोल्ड बाई इंडियंस फॉर द ब्रिटिश मास्टर्स। What happened with सुभाष बोस कि अनफॉर्चुनेटली नाउ देयर लॉट ऑफ प्रॉब्लम्स विद नेताजी के साथ। एक प्रॉब्लम बहुत बड़ी आती है कि भारत में अभी भी जो ऊपर की जो क्लास है वो अभी भी सुभाष चंद्र बोस को वेस्टर्न व्यू से दिखती है। जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल आई वेंट टू सम प्लेस इन बैंगलोर, तो मुझे कोई ब्रिगेडियर साहब बोल रहे थे कि साहब वो तो आईएनए की तो रैग टैग आर्मी थी। वो मैंने कहा साहब अपने अपने गिरेबान में झांक के देखो, तुम अपने आप को अंग्रेज समझते हो क्या? आप कहाँ से कंपेयर कर रहे हो ब्रिटिश इंडियन आर्मी से इंडियन नेशनल आर्मी? क्या क्या आप कंपेयर, मैं आपका कंपेयर करूँ? आपका और अमेरिकन आर्मी क्या कंपेयरेंगे? मैं आपकी एयरफोर्स के दिखाऊं कितने जहाज है और अमेरिकन के कितने जहाज हैं? अपने ऐसे कंपेयर ना करें। वो टाइम और था, उस आदमी के पास में 6 महीने का टाइम था। 6 महीने में उसने एक ओरिएंट करके जितने पीओडब्ल्यूज को खड़ा करके उसने एक फाइटिंग फोर्स बना दी। उसको मालूम था जर्मनी में जब सुभाष बोस थे, जिस दिन रशिया ने अटैक करा है अपने इस पे जर्मनी पे, ही न्यू द वॉर वाज ओवर, एक्सिस ऑफ गोइंग टू लूज बट ही हैड टू फाइट। When he came to Japan, he knew he was losing this battle, but then he had to psychologically wage this war. Somebody had to make a start somewhere. और आज हम लोग बैठ के बातें कर रहे हैं। आप प्लीज़ जिनके घरों में पुराने ज़माने की फ़ोटोग्राफ्स हैं, आपको ये पता ही नहीं है कि 1940 में किसी हिंदुस्तानी की हिम्मत नहीं थी अंग्रेज की आंख में आंख डाल के देख ले। सूबेदार की नौकरी मिल जाए उससे खुश हो जाते थे फौज में। हाईएस्ट रैंक ब्रिगेडियर का मिला था मेरे ख्याल से उसको, जो बाद में आपका जनरल बना। ये जूता साफ करने में और बड़े खुश खुश होते थे कि हमारा छोटा मोटा काम मिल गया। अंग्रेज से लड़ने की हिम्मत नहीं थी। वाइट मैन की सुपरमेसी बिल्कुल स्टैब्लिश हो गई थी। 1857 के बाद उन्होंने मार मार के पेड़ पे लाशें लटकाई थी यहाँ पे, और शायद बहुत लोगों को पता नहीं है। उन्होंने जफर के लड़के को जब उन्होंने उसकी गर्दन काटी है तो खून पिया उसका कैप्टन ने, वहाँ कैप्टन हडसन ने यहाँ पे पब्लिकली, इसलिए वो खूनी दरवाजा उसका नाम रखा हुआ है। लोगों में हिम्मत नहीं थी अंग्रेज से लड़ाई करने की। पहली बार लोगों में हिम्मत आई है जब जापान ने रशिया को हराया 1905 में, कि यस एशियन कंट्रीज कैन आल्सो डिफीट द वाइट पीपल। तो ये बिल्डअप धीरे धीरे होना शुरू हुआ और सुभाष बोस ने वो स्टार्ट किया। और जब ये आईएनए के लोगों को उन्होंने ट्रायल पे लगाया है, देवर 3 वॉर क्राइम्स ट्रायल इन दोज डेज, न्यूरमबर्ग और टोक्यो, वहाँ सब लोगों को उन्होंने क्लास 1 बी सी डी बना के उनको फांसी पर लटका दिया। दिल्ली के अंदर भी वॉर क्रिमिनल्स की लिस्ट बनी थी, मेरे पास है वो डिक्लासिफाइड लिस्ट है, अवेलेबल है। सारे आईएन वालों को उन्होंने वॉर क्रिमिनल्स डिक्लेयर किया और उनको उन्होंने कईयों को फांसी दी, कईयों को वैसे मारा, कईयों को गोली मारी, टॉर्चर वॉर्चर बहुत यहाँ पे हुए थे। अभी भी लोग कहते हैं कि जहाँ इनको रखा था वो रात को भूत आते हैं उनके वहाँ पे भी। दे वर ब्रूटलाइज्ड बाय दीज पीपल देयर, बाय इंडियंस ओनली। नो दिस थिंग, ऑल द इंडियन आर्मी, देयर वाज अ वर्चुअल रिवोल्ट। जैसे जलियांवाला बाग में जब उनको बोला गोली मारो, गोली मार दी। लेकिन यहाँ पे जब आईएन का जो ट्रायल शुरू हुआ है तो यहाँ रंबलिंग हो गई आर्मी में स्टार्ट। उस जमाने के कंटेम्प्रेरी नोट्स जो उस टाइम चीफ ऑफ द कमांडर इन चीफ ऑकली नेक था, या जो इंडियन उस टाइम पे अपने लेफ्टिनेंट जनरल सिन्हा हु वाज पार्ट ऑफ द डायरेक्टरेट ऑफ मिलिट्री ऑपरेशन, उनके स्टेटमेंट्स वो सब निकल के आ रहे हैं कि और फौजियों ने गोली चलाने से मना कर दिया। इंडियन आर्मी बिकेम प्रो सुभाष बोस, और अंग्रेज का यहाँ से जाने का जो मेन कारण था कि वो आर्मी उनके खिलाफ में हो गई। फिर वो नेवल ने म्यूटनी हो गई। वो नेवल म्यूटनी उन्होंने अपने आप को जय हिंदी उनका नाम दिया। उसका जो कमांडर था उनका, जो उसका कैम्ब्रिज यूनिवर्सिटी ने इंटरव्यू लिया, आपको मिल जाएगा फेसबुक, उसमें ऑडियो रिकॉर्डेड, उसमें खुद कह रहा है कि हम लोग सुभाष नोम के बोस के नाम से हम लोग सारे लाइन पे आ गए थे। तो ये सारी जो आपकी जो लड़ाई हुई है उसमें कोई खड़क बिना ढाल कुछ नहीं हुआ है। ये मिलिट्री से वो रूल कर रहे थे, उस मिलिट्री में रिवोल्ट होना शुरू हो गया, एंड दैट इज व्हाई दे डिसाइडेड। ऑफ कोर्स देयर वाज अ फैक्टर दैट प्रॉब्ली चर्चिल से बहुत अच्छा आदमी था ये अपना जो लेबर पार्टी का क्लेमेंट एटली, उसका भी वो सुभाष बोस से मिल चुका था। देयर आर ऑलवेज मोर देन वन फैक्टर्स। बट अगर ये जो कहानी हमको जो पढ़ाई जाती है घुट्टी, अच्छा, ये घुट्टी पढ़ाने के पीछे एक बहुत बड़ा कारण है। वो कारण आपको समझ में आएगा अगर आप एक फिल्म देखेंगे जो रिचर्ड एटनबरो की है, गांधी फिल्म। वो फिल्म बहुत लोगों को नहीं पता, वो हमारी गवर्नमेंट ने फंड करी थी। सर प्रोपेगेंडा फिल्म, उसमें काफ़ी झूठ सच दिखाया गया। जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल आप पूरी फिल्म देखिए, 3-3.5 घंटे की फिल्म है। उस 3.5 घंटे की फिल्म में 1 सेकंड का सुभाष बोस का सीक्वेंस नहीं है। एवरी टॉम डिक एंड हैरी हैज़ बीन शोन देयर, पर नेताजी को नहीं दिखाया उन्होंने इसमें किसी में। कमाल की बात है, महात्मा गांधी जैसे इतने आप फिल्म बना रहे हैं, गांधी जी की लाइफ में एक ही आदमी था जिसने उसको पॉलिटिकली 2 बार हराया। यू लाइफ ऑफ नेताजी इज इनकम्प्लीट विदाउट महात्मा गांधी रेफरेंस एंड वाइस वर्सा। तो उसमें नाम तक उसका नहीं है। और अगर आप फिल्म देखेंगे तो उस फिल्म में उन्होंने गांधी जी की इमेज बहुत अच्छी दिखाई, विच इज आई एग्री विद दैट थिंग। आई मीन गांधी जी वाज अ सुपर लाइक ह्यूमन बीइंग, देयर इज नो डिस्प्यूट, दे आर ऑल ग्रेट पीपल, गांधी जी, पटेल एंड सुभाष बोस एंड पंडित जी, और no, we are not disputing that they are not great people and so on and so forth. But please understand the idea of the movie when you see it, it shows both the British as well as Gandhi in good light. So when they left the country because of Subhash Bose, they transferred the power to Indian hands. They gave the power to those with whom they used to sit in the meetings in the evening, those who used to send them greeting cards on Christmas. उनके अपने पाल्स को उन्होंने पावर ट्रांसफर करी है, जिनसे उनकी लड़ाई नहीं थी, जिनसे उनका मारकाट नहीं मचा था। सुभाष बोस तो उनके लिए एनिमी था। तो ये जो पावर में हमारे जो आए हैं 46 में और 47 में, जो पूरे गांधी ब्रिगेड, इनको ये जस्टिफाई करना था कि हम लोग पावर में किस लिए आए। तो वहाँ उन्होंने ये नैरेटिव लोगों में डालना शुरू कर दिया, वो जो आपने बोला, दे दी हमें आज़ादी बिना खड़क बिना ढाल। और ये नैरेटिव को इतना ज़बरदस्त रीइंफोर्स किया गया कि हर साल का करोड़ों रुपए का बजट है इसके लिए। हमें अंधा पैसा ये लोग उसके लिए बहाते हैं, चाहे भारत में लोग भूखे मर जाएं, लेकिन इसका करोड़ रुपए का बजट जुड़ जाता है। आई थिंक लास्ट ईयर दे स्पेंड 150 करोड़ फॉर द गांधी 150th एनिवर्सरी। अब जाके देखिए कितना ज़बरदस्त उन्होंने पैसा खर्च किया गांधी के मेमोरियल में, दिल्ली में हो या अहमदाबाद में हो करके। इट मेक्स ऑल द डिफरेंस। मेरे पास, मैं किसी रेस्टोरेंट में जाता हूँ और मैं उसको वेटर को टिप देता हूँ 10 रुपये की, वो जिंदगी भर वो गरीब आदमी मेरे को सलूट मारेगा। या 150-60 करोड़ रुपये आप पब्लिक में डुबो रहे हो, तो जिसकी जेब में वो नोट जा रहा है, जिन लोगों ने गांधी का नाम ले लेके अपनी जिंदगियां बना ली, कोई प्रोफेसरी कर रहा है, कोई राज्यसभा में बैठा है, कोई वहाँ बैठा हो, क्यों उसके खिलाफ बोलेगा? उसको तो फायदा हो रहा है उसका नाम लेने से। तो ये पूरी एक कॉटेज इंडस्ट्री बन गई है बड़ी ज़बरदस्त, कि जो इसका नाम, इनफैक्ट इवन न्यूयॉर्क टाइम्स रिपोर्टेड दिस थिंग कि इन्होंने इंडिया में इन्होंने पूरा का पूरा ऑफिशियल सैंक्शन, ऑफिशियल पैसा लगा के इन्होंने पूरा प्रमोट किया हुआ। और वो सारा करते 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 वो इतना बड़ा हो गया कि कमाल की बात है, आज के दिन में जब जनसंघी देश में राज कर रहे हैं, जो जनसंघी, मतलब हाउ सॉलिड एंड फॉर्मिडेबल दिस ब्रांड हैज़ बिकम, कि जितने जनसंघी थे ये जब पावर के बाहर थे तो ये शौकों में गांधी के बारे में उल्टा सीधा बोलते थे। मैं आपको मोदी का दिखा दूंगा बाइट ऑडियो वीडियो में, और पावर में आने के बाद इनसे बड़ा गांधी भक्त कोई नहीं है। सो दिस इज व्हाट हैज हैपेंड कि ब्रांड इतना 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 ज़बरदस्त हो गया, और ये ब्रांड नाउ नेताजी के लिए मुसीबत, हमारे लिए मुसीबत बन गया कि अगर हम अपनी बात बोलते हैं तो ये लोग कुछ नहीं करते। उन्हें पता है कुछ करेंगे तो ये बात अब प्रॉब्लम विद द एंटायर सुभाष बोस डेथ मिस्ट्री एक्सेट्रा कि वंस यू ब्रिंग दिस थिंग आउट, it would automatically it would eventually become known that India became free because of Subhash Bose, but the credit was given to Mahatma Gandhi. और एक बार ये पब्लिक में स्टैब्लिश हो गया तो लोग बहुत नाराज होंगे, फिर वो बोलेंगे भैया आप ये ठिकाने में लगाओ. प्रॉब्लम ये है कि भैया गांधी का नाम तो मैं प्रमोट कर सकता हूँ यूके में और अमेरिका में, सुभाष बोस को मैं प्रमोट नहीं कर सकता. तो आपकी जितनी ये पूरी आपकी सिविल सर्विस की आईसीएस आईएफएस वगैरह जिनके बाप दादा भी राय बहादुर थे, जिससे बहुत से लोग भी, ये लोग नहीं चाहते कि उसको प्रमोट किया जाए. तो पूरा सिस्टम जो है, पूरा इकोसिस्टम जो मैट्रिक्स है, वो गांधी जी के फेवर में लोडेड है. And they don't want any other person to come anywhere near because Gandhi ji is sellable in the Western countries. And I was telling Gurmeet just now, Netaji is not sellable in Western countries. But what do I do standing in Delhi? I am concerned about my own country. मुझे नहीं मुझे लगता है आई एम ए ह्यूमन बीइंग. मेरे भी बहुत ख़राब लगता है जब मैं देखता हूँ कि हिटलर के टाइम पे वहाँ पे गैस चैम्बर थे, लोगों को मारा गया. लेकिन फर्स्ट एंड फॉरमोस्ट आई विल वरी अबाउट माई ओन पीपल कि हमारे यहाँ भी मिलियंस लोगों को मारा गया था. मैं पहले अपने घर की चिंता करूं कि मैं जाके देखूं कि मेरे अगली कॉलोनी में क्या हो रहा है. तो दिस इज लाइक दिस इज गोइंग टू क्रिएट प्रॉब्लम्स. एंड कि ये दे दी हमें आज़ादी खड़क बिना ढाल इज अ होक्स. प्यार मोहब्बत से कुछ नहीं होने वाला. आप दिल्ली में किराएदार को निकाल के दिखा दो, अहिंसा से बहुत बड़ी, वो अंग्रेज से बहुत दूर की बात है.
अनुज जी, बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंगली आपने समझाया और इसी के साथ मेरा एक सवाल ये है, लीडरशिप अगर नेताजी के पास होती उस टाइम तो आगे का फ्यूचर क्या होता? पाकिस्तान होता तभी?
मेरे लिए बड़ा मुश्किल है सवाल देना. नारायण मूर्ति gave an answer recently about it. He said कि India would have become like China, very prosperous and whatnot, something like that. I have a difficulty in answering such question because I think whatever happens at any point of time is a very unique thing. These are unique circumstances, and these unique circumstances cannot be replicated. So what if it is very difficult to answer ki what would have happened if Netaji had come back. I mean, if Netaji had, let's say, in fact there are records. I mean, come to think of it, let me cite you, like, again I'm digressing, but it's again relevant. एक interesting कहानी आपको सुनाता हूँ, which is a matter of record. It is like, it in a way will answer your question also. You heard the name of Louis Fisher, famous American journalist, Pulitzer Award-winning journalist. In fact, it was his book which inspired the movie Gandhi of Attenborough. Louis Fisher met Gandhiji on 20th of July 1946. It's a matter of record. आप सर्च कीजिए उनकी ऑफिशियल वेबसाइट में गांधी जी की आपको रेट मिल जाएगा. Louis Fisher was a pro-India fellow. He knew Subhash Bose. He knew everybody. He was a good man. Americans wanted India to be free. In fact, Roosevelt tried, but Churchill would have none of it. He would not listen to, because they were also having the same problem. Look, we are talking about fighting for freedom or democracy. How can we keep India in slavery? But Churchill would not listen. You know very well what Churchill's takes was in those days. अब ये उनसे मिले, मीटिंग हुई. मीटिंग के बाद और मीटिंग में क्या हुआ किसी को नहीं पता. नेक्स्ट वी कम टू 1997 व्हेन इसके फिशर के जो पेपर्स हैं अमेरिका में निकल के आते हैं. उसकी फैमिली ने मेरे ख्याल से वो पेंसिल्वेनिया यूनिवर्सिटी में वहाँ पर कहीं डाल दी उठा करके. तो वो 97 में निकल के आ रहा है कि आफ्टर ही met Gandhiji on 20th of July 1946, which would be almost like 1 year after Subhash Bose's reported death. उसको गांधी जी के बिहाफ पे गांधी जी की सेक्रेटरी ने एक क्लैरिफिकेशन दिया in writing. Secretary was Khushi Ben Nauroji. So her biography was written some time back. In fact, there's a story on the BBC about her. You can Google it sometime, or probably maybe a month back. Khushi Nauroji. She happened to be Dadabhai Nauroji's granddaughter also, who was Congress president in the early days of Congress party. So she was also not a small fry. Khushi Ben Nauroji, Gandhiji's secretary, and also the granddaughter of Dadabhai Nauroji. Now Khushi Ben's letter now is available in Princeton University. So that letter reads fun. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, there are certain things which Gandhiji, she's explaining on behalf of Gandhiji, because, and this is on, the letter was written on 22nd of July 46, 2 days after Fisher met Gandhiji. So she writes, the relevant portion, reads like, Gandhiji is not untouched by what is happening all over the world. And he knows that the Indian army is no longer of the same temper it used to be in First World War. At heart, they are revolutionary and they are pro-Russia. And then she writes this line, if Subhash comes back with the help of Russia, there is nothing Gandhiji can do to reason with the country. Now, please understand, a year after Subhash Chandra Bose's death, Mahatma Gandhi secretly conveying to an American journalist who had links to the American president, etc., that if Subhash Chandra Bose comes back with the help of Russia, there's nothing he can do. And interestingly, the Louis Fisher thereafter, he travels to Moscow. He meets up the Italian ambassador, in Moscow, and he tells him, and that's part of record, among the papers, that Subhash Bose did not die. So he was actually making inquiries about Subhash Bose in Moscow afterwards, Louis Fisher. So इस तरह के documents, in fact, there are more records. The British were asked, if this man comes back, there'll be trouble, big problem in India. मेरा मानना ये है कि अगर वापस वो आ जाते, और if the situation was the same, that the Allied have won the war, there was nothing Subhash Bose could have done. He was a relic of Second World War, relic of the Axis powers. He was, in their eyes at least, something like a war criminal. So obviously they would not have allowed him to function. So if I think in a scenario, and which actually happened, that if like the war ended, the Axis lost, Allied powers won the war, Netaji had no role to play in the world. He had to go underground. He had to remain in hiding, and that's why the story of his death was created. He could not have surfaced because Subhash Chandra Bose cannot come. I am Netaji. I was fighting there. Now I am back. So let me become an MLA of some party. No, he won't be. He will the leader. He will be nobody else, and that would be totally unacceptable to the world powers. They would not let him function, and the kind of situation India was in. So this is what whole thing is like. And this is where the Gumnami Baba story comes into the picture. That it was not possible for him to surface or resurface, and things were totally gone against him. So, so this is like, as I said, every situation is unique, so it's difficult to replicate. But this is how it is. This is what I feel.
Thank you so much, Anujji, for explaining in such great details. I would next like to go to Ashutoshji. Ashutoshji, if you want to ask your question now.
Hello, Anuj sir. Glad
Namaste,
to
Ashutosh.
interact with you.
Namaste.
Uh, uh, Before, Mera actually, haven't such any question, but it just need to add to this. Ki, since you came at the end of the Gumnami Baba thing,
Hmm.
just like to tell you, I've tried to contact you many times,
Hmm.
but regarding some information, but I think you have already covered it. My grandfather was posted in that time Faizabad when Gumnami Baba was living there, and he had personally met him twice.
आशुतोष जी, आप उर्मी जी को अपना जरा एड्रेस है ना, we will connect on the otherwise.
Yes,
And
yes,
interestingly, let me
I'll do
add
that.
something. Interestingly, are you aware of Dr. Bikram Singh by any chance?
I've heard while growing up, I've heard from my grandfather, and
No,
मैं कई बार
Doctor.
उनसे
Those who do not know, Dr. Bikram Singh is a very one of the most polished IPS officers of the country. He was the Director General of UP Police. He is there on all television debates on every channel, Times Now, Republic, whatever. So Bikram Singh, given an interview which I posted the link today. I know because I have met Dr. Sir several times. Bikram Singh's father was also posted in Faizabad, and like everybody else, they all are aware that he was there, Netaji.
yes truly, and also since एक चीज और इसमें ऐड करनी थी, since you have also covered Shastri ji's death, so my
शास्त्री जी पे
again
कभी हम लोग कभी क्लब हाउस अलग से करेंगे, वो एक अलग टॉपिक है
नहीं नहीं
वो
सर, मैं बस एक पॉइंट ऐड कर रहा हूँ. आई एम नॉट आस्किंग अ क्वेश्चन, आई एम जस्ट पॉइंट ऐड कर रहा हूँ. एंड सुभाष बोस वाज अवेयर ऑफ इट जब मेरे ग्रैंडफादर ने उनको बताया था, बिकॉज माय ग्रैंडमदर वाज द सिस्टर ऑफ शास्त्री जी's वाइफ.
Okay, we need to talk afterwards.
Yeah, sure.
We
That's
need to
just
talk.
what I wanted.
Where
Yeah,
are
sure.
you where are you located? Are you in
Sir,
India?
I'm in Lucknow right now.
You're in Lucknow. ठीक है, तो we'll talk. We will talk. आप
Yeah,
उर्मी जी को जरा
sure.
अपना अपना जरा कुछ YouTube ट्विटर दीजिए हैंडल, मैं आपसे कनेक्ट करूँ.
बिल्कुल I'll connect.
बिकॉज वहाँ पे फैजाबाद में दैट इज वन थिंग, वहाँ बहुत लोगों ने देखा. मेरे जो मेन सोर्स थे वो ही वाज अ फॉर्मर डायरेक्टर ऑफ द सीबीआई, एस के दत्ता जी. ही इज नो मोर, बट ही वाज द डायरेक्टर ऑफ सीबीआई अंडर नरसिम्हा राव. But Datta Sahab was posted in Faizabad before in Lucknow in 1980s. So it was a very well-known thing among the top levels people that ये rumors हैं या वो है and all that. Many people met him also. The government was aware. So we need to encourage people to come out and start saying this thing. Look, we were in touch. We knew about it.
Yes,
Because
and
the manner in which the Yogi government has behaved on this issue, exactly word by word they have followed the Congress line.
very true. In fact, my grandfather took a premature retirement. He was about to retire after 6 months, but after listening that Gumnami Baba has passed away, this and that, he took a premature retirement. And So because he
तो
couldn't
ये आपको ये लोगों को समझ में नहीं आएगा ये अभी है क्या, लेकिन एनी हाउ
क्योंकि एक्चुअली सर उनका कनेक्ट उतना तगड़ा था ना उनसे, बिकॉज ही वाज सो इमोशनल, वो अभी बताते नहीं थे, बट आई ग्रू अप हियरिंग द स्टोरी. सो मैं आपसे कई बार कनेक्ट करने की कोशिश की, बट अनफॉर्चुनेटली नहीं हुआ
नहीं है ना
है.
आपको आप मुझे बताइए कौन मानेगा कौन. आई मीन सपोज दिस इज 1970s एंड इफ आई टेल यू कम आई विल मेक यू मीट सुभाष चंद्र बोस, will anybody believe that? No. Number two, this man had such tremendous personality. I mean, I cannot start thinking of telling you how he behaved, how he talked. किस तरह से वो सिक्योरिटी इंटेलिजेंस टॉप सीक्रेट ये वो फ्लांट हमकाना बातें करते थे, बातें करने का स्टाइल क्या था. People would be mesmerized. So nobody used to have the people treated him like a demigod. और वो पहला इंस्ट्रक्शन यही होता था कि किसी को मेरे बारे में आप लोगों ने कभी नहीं बताना. So people took it like as a God's word. I will not tell anybody about it. So this was the first. Otherwise, you couldn't have any access to him. That was the first thing. He would test people that whether they can keep secrecy or not. So that was his basic, first precondition, and he allowed only those people access, those who could maintain secrets. So that's why people have not come out and said it, things. But then a time has come, we must do it, because otherwise it will be too late. Because see, our generation, this generation, we are fighting. If we lose this thing now, it will never. I mean, the people who are now, the generation afterwards, now people who are in their 20s and 30s, they won't be able to relate to it. This is the time we can do it. I mean, I keep traveling, and I've traveled, all over Singapore, America, and then England. You can still go to Los Angeles and make people sit for 3 hours and talk about Subhash Bose. But the second generation after will have difficulty connecting with Subhash Bose. तो अभी जो हम कर रहे हैं, हम कर सकते हैं, अभी कर सकते हैं. गवर्नमेंट ठीक है अभी काम नहीं कर रही है, लेकिन दे कैन बी परसुएडेड प्रोवाइडेड सम प्रेशर ऑन देम. लेकिन एक बार ये गवर्नमेंट चली जाती है और उसके बाद में कोई भगवान ना भला
सर
करे,
ऑल
ये
विल बी सेम, सब वही करेंगे जो वो करते आए हैं.
ऑल सेम है, लेकिन एक बहुत बड़ा फर्क है. मैं ये फर्क ये है, एक फ़ायदा ये है. जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल मैं नागपुर में लेक्चर देने के लिए गया था, तो मैं वहाँ जाकर के मैंने मेरा बोलने का स्टाइल सब जगह सेम होता है. तो मैंने वहाँ जाकर उन्हें क्रिटिसाइज़ किया. आई सेड कि यू गाइस हैव लेट अस डाउन, you promised us, you did nothing, all you're doing is Gandhi Bhakti and nothing else. Thereafterward, they called me to visit the Satsang headquarters. And I told them, look, I criticized you, and you have invited me, and you are offering me a cup of tea, and you are giving me due respect, and with proper respect, you are taking me and, and you are showing me Samadhi of Guruji, etc. किसी और पार्टी के बारे में, किसी और संगठन के बारे में अगर मैंने ऐसे बोल दिया होता तो मेरी तो लाश नहीं मिलेगी वहाँ पे. तो इनका एक एडवांटेज जरूर है बीजेपी वालों का, आरएसएस वालों का, कि दे हैव अ फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच. दे डोंट माइंड इफ यू टेल देम फैक्ट्स ऑन देयर फेसेस. तो एटलीस्ट यू कैन टॉक. अगर ये चले जाएंगे तो उसके बाद में आप बात नहीं कर पाओगे आप लोग. अगर मान लीजिए आपका राहुल बाबा कल को पीएम बन गया तो हमारा खेल खत्म. मैं आपको लिख करके दे रहा हूँ, ये सब छोटी मोटी बातें, ये जो बात कर रहे हैं ना कि स्नूपिंग हो रहा है, ये कांग्रेसी बहुत ज़बरदस्त इन्होंने जो हरकतें इन्होंने करी हैं इमरजेंसी वगैरह में. मेरी नाराज़गी बीजेपी के साथ ये है कि ये लोग कांग्रेस को एक्सपोज नहीं कर रहे. आपने क्यों नहीं एक्सपोज किया इन लोगों को? आप लोग क्यों नहीं इनको स्नूपिंग वाले केस में इनको फंसाया? जब आपको बैठ के टेलीविजन में आकर के बीजेपी वाले इंसल्ट करते हैं सावरकर की, वो सावरकर ने माफ़ी मांगी थी, तो आप क्यों नहीं उनको समझाते कि बॉस जिस तरीके से सावरकर को ट्रीट किया गया था और जैसे गांधी को ट्रीट किया गया था उसमें कितना फ़र्क है. उसको बैठ के आपने 5 स्टार होटल में बैठा दिया, वो पैलेस के अंदर, आगा पैलेस के अंदर. उस आदमी को आपने नंगा लटका के आपने उसको डंडे मारे सुबह शाम. ही टू ईज हिमसेल्फ इन दैट पोजिशन. तो ऐसे आप कैसे आप किसी के बारे में ऐसे बोल सकते हैं? आपको पता नहीं ABCD किसी के बारे में, तो लेकिन ये बोलना नहीं चाहते. तो मेरे को तो उल्टा नाराजगी है कि दे आर नॉट बीइंग एग्रेसिव इनफ अगेंस्ट कांग्रेस पार्टी. कांग्रेस के बहुत कांड है जो आकर के टेलीविजन में ये बोल रहे हैं कि बाबा रामदेव के बारे में बातें कर रहे हैं. अरे यार तुम्हारे पास, शैल आई टेल यू व्हाट धीरेन्द्र ब्रह्मचारी वाज ऑल अबाउट? व्हाट वाज द स्टोरी ऑफ रासपुतीन ऑफ इंडिया? व्हाट इज द मीनिंग ऑफ रासपुतीन? इनकी हिम्मत कैसी हुई रामदेव महाराज के बारे में पब्लिकली से बोलने के लिए? तो 2% के कांग्रेसी जिनका सबका बैकग्राउंड खराब है, इन्होंने इमरजेंसी पूरे देश पे करी है. इतने लोगों को उन्होंने ब्रूटलाइज किया, टॉर्चर किया. दे टॉर्चर्ड इवन पीपल हु आर नॉट लिंक्ड टू पॉलिटिकल पार्टी. पूरे ऑपोजिशन को उन्होंने जेल में डाल दिया. इनकी हिम्मत कैसे आज टीम आके बात कर रहे हैं? हु आर दे टू टॉक अबाउट ऑल दीज थिंग्स? बट बीजेपी इज वेरी सॉफ्ट. The BJP is doing the same line. They are talking about the same old story of Mahatma Gandhi and the same old thing. I mean, they are sometimes they put the blame on Pandit ji, but Pandit ji का blame क्या? Pandit ji को सेटअप करने वाले तो गांधी जी थे. आप क्या कर रहे हैं? तो मेरा तो उल्टा, तो but so we do have an advantage with these people कि they listen to you, they will not act and they let you speak. मैं आपको लिख करके दे रहा हूँ, कांग्रेस पार्टी पावर में आएगी, मुझे वो यहाँ से मेरे को वीज़ा नहीं मिलेगा बाहर जाने के लिए। कम से कम अभी मेरी तो इतनी है कि मैं घर से निकल करके मैं लंदन में आके मैं इनको गाली गलौज देके जाता हूँ, मैं अमेरिका में जाके उनको ऑटो से बोल देता हूँ। उनको मालूम है, हाई कमीशन का बंदा आया था, मैं आई वेंट टू लंदन बिजनेस स्कूल फॉर अ टॉक, दी somebody from the high commission came, I was told they spy on people everywhere. स्पाइंग तो हमारी फितरत है। आई वाज टेलिंग गुरमीत मैडम, स्पाइंग करना तो हमारी फितरत में है। यहाँ तो हमारी कॉलोनी में आंटियां स्पाइंग करती हैं, तो मुझे उसमें कोई डिस्प्यूट नहीं है कि स्पाइंग तो होती है यहाँ पे, वो तो हमारा नेशनल कल्चर है यहाँ पे तो स्पाइंग का। बट वी हैव एडवांटेज, सो वी कैन परसुएट। अगर अमित शाह और मोदी इस चीज़ को नहीं खोल सकते तो कोई नहीं खोल सकता। तो वी नीड टू ट्राई, वी नीड टू।
अनुज जी, इसका ना मेरे पास बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग आंसर है। मैं चाहती हूँ एक एक सेशन अलग हो जाए इस बात पे कि क्यों नहीं हो रहा।
हाँ करेंगे,
इसमें
अभी
बहुत बात
इसमें होगा, इसमें होगा, क्योंकि अभी मेरा जो एम ये है, अभी मेरा सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम क्या है आप लोग सभी के साथ में, मेरा प्रॉब्लम ये है कि किसी आदमी को ABCD केस की नहीं पता, और मेरे लिए बड़ा मुश्किल होता है समझाना ABCD। आई कम इनटू माय एलिमेंट्स आफ्टर हाफ एन आवर because I have to explain, basics of the case. You should be asking me precise question direct कि गुमनामी बाबा वाले केस में आपने ये बात बोली है लेकिन ये इसका काउंटर है, मैं आपको वहाँ के आंसर दूंगा, क्योंकि अभी वो कंट्री में अवेयरनेस नहीं है what really happened. Once they know the basic of the case, then it is easier. So we would like the debate level to go up. अभी भी मैं इतने साल मुझे हो गए, अभी भी लोग मुझसे बेसिक सवाल पूछते हैं, नहीं तो अब तो हमें तो so anyhow, but we should do these sessions one after another, take up their multiple questions, there are multiple scenarios. In fact, nobody's asked me a single negative question as of now. I thought I'll put no negative questions. तो धीरे धीरे डिबेट को हमने मेच्योर करना है, बिकॉज द टाइम इज नेक्स्ट ईयर 2015 इज व्हेन नेताजी विल बी न्यूज इज बर्थ 125th anniversary, and we have India's 75th year. God willing, if there's no corona, Netaji will create stories next year. So I have to, try and prepare things. Otherwise, what is going to happen? The government is running its own show. उन्होंने अपने एक ये कमेटी बनाई है नेताजी का बर्थ ये सेलिब्रेट करने के लिए। उन्होंने सब उन्हीं लोगों को लिया है जो गवर्नमेंट के सपोर्ट में है। इनफैक्ट सम ऑफ देम नो नथिंग अबाउट सुभाष चंद्र बोस, 1 or 2 आर बेसिकली हॉस्टाइल टुवर्ड्स सुभाष बोस। क्या आप कमेटी बना के बैठे हैं आप लोगों ने? क्या आप उनका क्या कंट्रीब्यूशन है? जिन लोगों ने कभी सुभाष बोस का नाम तक नहीं लिया कभी आज तक, वो लोग नेताजी कमेटी में बैठे हुए, और अनुज सर को आपने फ़ोन तक नहीं किया। नहीं हो, मैं मुझे वैसे भी नहीं घुसना गवर्नमेंट के साथ में। आई एम वेरी हैप्पी टू बी एन इंडिपेंडेंट पर्सन, बट दिस इज हाउ इट इज। बट so there will be more session, there should be more session, because ये एक सेशन से इतना पुराना केस और इतना मल्टी, इसमें इतने एंगल्स हैं, मतलब there should be a time you should discuss with me कि IB का रोल क्या था इसमें। मैं कि आप पूरा चैप्टर लिखा के था मैं IB के बारे में, क्या IB को मालूम था यहाँ बैठे थे? इन्होंने क्या किया? Why didn't the government get him bumped off?
वो मेरा क्वेश्चन था सर, बट यू वर टॉकिंग
मैं
अबाउट दैट।
वो उसका बड़ा क्लियर आंसर सर, बम्प करना इतना आसान नहीं था। उनको मालूम है कि बुड्ढा बाहर नहीं आ रहा, फंस गया है, he is caught up in circumstances, he cannot come out, he was trying, he couldn't come out, but if you bump him off, he has contacts, they will all start saying publicly. काफ़ी लोगों को मालूम था, और उनके अपने आदमी गवर्नमेंट में थे, गवर्नमेंट के मिनिस्टर्स को मालूम था। I wonder if Urmi madam has ever heard the name of Ashok Sen.
I have Anuj ji.
I think his grandson is in Oxford. His grandson is in Oxford.
Yeah, I was aware that he was in UK, but I didn't know the details.
When you try, because I last spoke to him 20 odd years ago, but anyway, that's not the reason. This Ashok Sen was Gumnami Baba's one of the secret sources. He knew about him. So he had his people inside the government. So let me. I have not yet given you the others outline. I mean, they must be thinking I've gone nuts, talking about Baba and all that. Let me just kindly give me 5 minutes. I'll explain to you why you should even consider Gumnami Baba's story. There was a commission of inquiry set up in 1999 by Government of India, known as Justice Manoj Kumar Mukherjee Commission. एक हमारे यहाँ पे एक ऐसा इम्प्रेशन कुछ लोगों ने क्रिएट कर दिया कि पहला इम्प्रेशन ये कि सारे बंगाली नेताजी के फ़ैन होते हैं, भक्त होते हैं। उसी में कॉन्टेक्स्ट में लोग समझते हैं कि मनोज कुमार मुखर्जी बंगाली कोई कमीशन का बैठा तो नेताजी के फेवर में बात करेगा। तो पहली बात ये कि नेताजी के सारे बंगाली नेताजी के भक्त होते हैं, ये दिस इज़ अ फैलेसी। मैंने पब्लिकली इस बात को बोला है, मैंने इंडिया टुडे कॉन्क्लेव में बात होता है कि 90% बंगालीज को सुभाष बोस में कोई धेले का इंटरेस्ट नहीं है। आपके अगर कोई बंगाली आपको इंटेलेक्चुअल मिलेगा, इनवेरिएबली ही विल बी ए लाल सलाम, और ही विल बी ए हार्डकोर चमचा ऑफ द गांधी फैमिली। फ्रॉम द टाइम ऑफ द बीसी रॉय, फ्रॉम द टाइम्स ऑफ बीसी रॉय। सिर्फ बेचारे मुश्किल से 4-5% लोग हैं जिनको सुभाष बोस में इंटरेस्ट है। आपने क्यों आप पूरी बंगाली कौम को बदनाम कर रहे हैं? वहाँ तो आप कलकत्ता एयरपोर्ट में उतरेंगे तो गांधी गैलरी वहाँ लगी हुई है। जब भी वहाँ पे कोई प्रोटेस्ट करना होता है तो बीजेपी के लोग भी गांधी के नीचे फोटो नीचे जाके बैठते हैं, मूर्ति के नीचे में। अभी बीजेपी बंगाल वहाँ पे पूरा गांधी यात्रा निकालने में लगी थी पूरे इलेक्शन से पहले। तो ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं है वहाँ पे। और दूसरा, ये कमीशन जो बनी थी वो कैसे बनी थी, उसमें कोई बंगाल का लिंक नहीं है। हुआ ये था कि 97 में देयर वाज लॉट ऑफ डिस्कशन इन द कंट्री कि नेताजी का 100 ईयर आ गया, इंडिया बिकम। तो वो लोग जो सपोर्ट करते थे इस व्यू कि सुभाष बोस हैज डाइड इन प्लेन क्रैश एंड द एशेज ऑफ नेताजी आर लाइंग इन रेनगोजी टेम्पल, so there was a demand renewed that his ashes should be brought back to India. When this demand was made, unwittingly, the then Defense Minister Mulayam Singh ji made a statement कि I will bring these ashes back to India. और जब उन्होंने ये बात बोली तो कुछ लोगों ने उसमें कलकत्ता हाई कोर्ट में PIL ठोक दिया। अब उसमें जो ठोकने वाले थे, अगेन पीपल हु आर फ्रॉम बंगाल एंड उर्मी जी, दे वुड प्रोबब्ली नो बेटर। उर्मी जी के खुद ग्रेट ग्रैंडफादर वाज इन कम्स फ्रॉम दैट लाइन। ये बादल बिनोय दिनेश गुप्ता के रिलेटिव वहाँ गए थे। These are very well-known freedom fighters. The people who are willing to die for Subhash Bose, they actually went and killed an officer, very notorious police officer, commissioner, whatever, inside the the secretariat building. So उसमें से था दिनेश गुप्ता। तो दिनेश गुप्ता के relatives, Sunil Gupta, etc., they filed an application and they were secretly following the mummy papa's, they filed an PIL and they asked, and the case was like this, that the उस जमाने का जो चीफ जस्टिस था वो थे प्रभाशंकर मिश्रा जी। We all know that in India, in case you are not in India for quite some time, आपके जितने चीफ जस्टिस होते हैं स्टेट्स में, they are not from that states. So let's keep this whole Bengali thing aside. The chief justice was Prabhashankar Mishra ji, who was from VP. I met him, he's no more, but I'm quoting from his order. Prabhashankar Mishra ji ने गवर्नमेंट के वक्त, तो the contention was, without proving that Subhash Chandra Bose has died, you cannot bring the ashes of XYZ to India. First prove that the ashes are his. So Prabhashankar Mishra, the Chief Justice, asked the government council, this is in 97, what is the government of India stand on Subhash Bose's death? Now please understand, spin doctors on television can say whatever they like because they get 1 minute, then some people are very good at saying whatever they speak and they can get away with it. But you cannot tell lies before a court of law, especially if the judge is interested in the case. There are judges who don't care, so you can say whatever you like, he will also not understand. But in this case, the judge had understood the issue. तो उन्होंने पूछा कि आप गवर्नमेंट का स्टैंड क्या। सो द गवर्नमेंट लॉयर, एंड दिस इज अ मैटर ऑफ रिकॉर्ड, यू कैन फाइंड इट इन द कोर्ट ऑर्डर विच इज ऑल्सो अवेलेबल इन द एज ऑफ दिस एज वी लिव इन, वी कैन फाइंड एवरीथिंग, वी कैन गूगल इट, आपको ऑर्डर मिल जाएगा 98 का। उसमें मेंशन उन्होंने किया कि गवर्नमेंट के काउंसिल ने बोला कि देयर वाज अ स्टोरी दैट ही डाइड इन अ प्लेन क्रैश, बट द स्टोरी इज फुल ऑफ लूप होल्स एंड कॉन्ट्रडिक्शंस, द आई विटनेस अकाउंट इज स्केची। तो उसने कहा आप गवर्नमेंट खुद ही एडमिट कर रही है कि प्लेन क्रैश की थ्योरी में प्रॉब्लम है, तो यू मस्ट सेट अप एन फ्रेश इंक्वायरी। अब पता लगा वो आदमी कब था, कब मरा, क्या, तो ये उसने ऑर्डर दे दिया। बाय द टाइम द ऑर्डर केम, अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी had become the prime minister. Now please understand, Atal Bihari Vajpayee could not have behaved like Rajiv Gandhi did, because there was a similar case, not exactly, but there was a similar case concerning Netaji filed in the Rajasthan High Court by a certain Nandlal Sharma in 1985. Rajiv Gandhi's government did not even respond to it. आंसर तक नहीं दिया उन्होंने उसको, और नंदलाल शर्मा सडनली डाइड, गॉड नोज हाउ। लेकिन इस बार तो साहब अटल जी और ये सब बैठे थे, तो उनकी मीटिंग हुई दिल्ली में, अटल जी थे उसमें, अडवाणी जी थे, ही वाज द होम मिनिस्टर, बिकॉज दिस इशू हैज बीन इन द रिमिट ऑफ होम मिनिस्ट्री। अर्लियर व्हेन पंडित जी वाज अलाइव, द होल इशू वाज इन द रिमिट ऑफ मिनिस्टर ऑफ एक्सटर्नल अफेयर्स। नाउ आफ्टर 1968 इट इज द MHA विच इज इन चार्ज ऑफ नेताजी इशूज। तो वो सोली सराब जी वाज अटॉर्नी जनरल, ही वाज देयर, एंड होम सेक्रेटरी एंड सो ऑन सो फोर्थ। इन लोगों ने कंसल्ट किया नेताजी के फॉर्मर वेटरन्स को ना, उनकी भी बैकग्राउंड ज़्यादा लोगों को पता नहीं। जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल एक वेटरन थी आपकी, वो कॉमरेड लक्ष्मी सहगल, हु हैड बिट्रेड सुभाष बोस बाय जॉइनिंग हैंड्स विद दोज हु यूज्ड टू कॉल हिम तोजोस डॉग। सब लोगों ने मना करा कि कोई प्लेन क्रैश की कहानी ठीक है, छोड़ दो, लेकिन गवर्नमेंट ने बोला नहीं, कोर्ट का ऑर्डर आया है, एंड दे डिसाइडेड टू सेट अप ए कमीशन। Then, as the protocol goes, the government asked the Chief Justice of India to suggest a name of a retired judge. To my knowledge, Justice Thomas was supposed to lead the inquiry, but Justice Thomas was not available. He declined. So then Justice Manoj Kumar Mukherjee is a very well-known Supreme Court judge, very honest, to the point, honest man. Justice Mukherjee passed away probably 2 months back, and his younger brother is in England, London. He is, I think, part of Mr. Mittal's boards. You probably recall there was a story of this Malaysian airline crashing. Recently there was an Indian fellow died with his Chinese wife. He was Justice Mukherjee's nephew. Anyhow, so Mukherjee, very well-known, honest man, Supreme Court former judge, he was asked to become the chairman of the commission. Now, Mukherjee Commission ki report आई, and this was probably the best ever inquiry done on this case because we had inquiries previously by a Shahnawaz committee in 1956. Now, if you read the government records, it will tell you that Shahnawaz Khan was credible because he was a member of the INA. But the government records won't tell you that Shahnawaz Khan was a member of the INA for 1 year. Thereafter, all his life, he was a chamcha of the Gandhi family. So I live in Delhi for 1 year. Then I spend my entire life in Calcutta. I'm no longer Delhi wala boss. I have lived in Calcutta for 40 years. I lived in Delhi for 1 year, but 40 years I was in Calcutta. So likewise. Then there was another commission again formed under public pressure in 1970. There was a G.D. Costa commission. G.D. Costa was Indira Gandhi's biographer. He was Panditji's friend. What do you expect from these people? What kind of judgment they'll give? So Mukherjee was in that sense unbiased, to the point, and he went straight by facts. He wrote his report. His main conclusion was that plane crash did not happen. I played a very big role in the whole scenario because I approached the Taiwan government. Indian government did not want to approach Taiwan government, and it's a very interesting story. When Indira Gandhi was prime minister and there was G.D. Costa commission functioning, they did not allow G.D. Costa to go to Taiwan initially. And when it did not happen, there were parliamentarians who complained against it. And the people the fellow who complained the most was Atal Bihari Vajpayee. And when Atal Bihari became the Prime Minister of India, he did not allow the same commission to go to Taiwan. So then I intervened, I spoke to the Taiwanese and wrote emails, and I got the answer. There was no plane crash and so on and so forth. And this is how the commission came to know. Anyhow, Mukherjee commission deduced in his report, no plane crash. There was a plan to send Netaji to Russia. So it was very clear he was going to go to Russia to continue his freedom struggle, so on and so forth. But he said, I cannot prove he landed in Russia because he was not given access to the security intelligence archives in Russia. Unless you access the KGB archives, you can't know what happened in Russia. Then he writes about the ashes. He said the ashes are of Ichiro. I just when Colonel Saab put the question, the ashes are not of Subhash Bose. These are of the fellow called Ichiro Okura, whose body was passed off as Netaji as part of the plan. Justice Mukherjee talked, in his report in detail about the DNA test of the ashes. He actually tried his best, and here there's a very interesting, technicality. The ashes are in Japan, but they are in the custody of Indian government right from 1951-52. So the physical position has been given to the Renkoji temple priest, but the actual caretaker of the ashes is the Indian ambassador in Tokyo. Which is to say that if you want to get a DNA test done, it can be done tomorrow morning. Japan is not involved. Actually, Japan and Germany have washed their hands off whatever happened before Second World War. They have disconnected themselves from Second World War. They don't care about what really happened. They just want to get rid of this whole damn thing actually. So Japan is no longer interested or bothered about Subhash Bose. And the ashes are in Indian custody. You want to get we pay some money to the temple authorities secretly. It became known. I publicize this information, and now the documents have become available. We have been giving them some money, and so you want to get a DNA test, and you can do it tomorrow morning. In fact, I met Sushma ji. She could have ordered next morning. Sushma ji used to, any Tom, Dick, and Harry who tweeted to her, she would respond. But Anush whom she had met, and she had told me, I like your book, she never responded to my tweets. Ma'am, why didn't you get the DNA test done? It's in your hand. And that is because Justice Mukherjee tried. He spoke to experts in Japan and America and England, so on and so forth. All said, not possible. The human remains are burnt. You cannot take any DNA out of it. But American expert Terry Milton was willing to try and give it a shot, and he offered, I can do it, but first you do an anthropological evaluation of these remains and give me a report. Now, an anthropological forensic test on these remains will tell you whether or not these bones of a male, female, how big, tall, was he a Caucasian, was he an Asian Indian. In fact, you don't need to do a DNA test. But because you have basically a part of skull in essentially, there are pictures available what exactly these ashes are. So anthropological evaluation can clear up things, whether these are the hadiyas of an Indian or a Japanese. And since these are the ashes, the remains hadiya of Japanese Ichiro Okura, Government of India developed cold feet. So if you ask me why there's no DNA testing of Rinpoche temple ashes, Government of India is not keen. People like me are all in favor of it. My only contention is that if you have to get it done, please, in the name of God, do it in England and America. I don't trust Indian lab. I'll come to it why I'll say so. Justice Mukherjee removed the pen custody. He said Russia, Netaji was going to Russia, but I cannot prove whether he landed there or not, so story ends there. Then he detailed the Gumnami Baba issue. And there he writes three things. A, eyewitness account is credible. Now, please understand, eyewitness account can get a person hanged. All the murder cases are decided by eyewitness account. So he said eyewitness account, they were people, and especially those who had seen Netaji and who had seen this person, they are saying he's the same person. So they are, why should we not believe them? Number two, documentary evidence. There are, the correspondence shared between these two, people and these people and the so-called Baba, they are also, complementing the story that he was Netaji. So you have the eyewitness account and you have the documentary evidence adding to it. Then he comes to, he said there's still, and then he writes that there is no clinching evidence to prove that this man was Netaji because, and the main reason is, he said, why this cannot be proven, because the handwriting test and a DNA test, there were some teeth found, in the house of this, where this Baba, so-called Baba, lived. They were tested by, the forensic labs, and they were negative. So Mukherjee wrote in his report that there is no clinching evidence. Netaji. Deduction of the media was and is that Justice Mukherjee rejected this whole story. No, he did not reject. All he said was there is evidence, but it is not clinching because of negative DNA, negative handwriting experts' opinion. अब उसके बाद में एक चीज़ हुई 2010 में, एंड वो चीज़ ये थी कि मुझे तो मालूम थी, वो ये था कि जस्टिस मुखर्जी को सस्पिशन था कि ये डीएनए टेस्ट में गड़बड़ा हुआ, उन्होंने घोटाला किया लोगों ने, क्योंकि वो उनका रिपोर्ट में ही उन्होंने, मुखर्जी ने जो रिपोर्ट लिखा है, उस रिपोर्ट में उन्होंने गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया को उन्होंने इंडाइट किया कि द गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया इज नॉट हेल्पिंग मी ऑन दिस केस, दे आर क्रिएटिंग ऑब्स्टिकल्स. सो द पॉइंट ये है कि जो गवर्नमेंट ऑब्स्टिकल क्रिएट कर रही है, उसी की लैब में आप क्या टेस्टिंग करवाया आप लोगों ने, मतलब वो क्या टेस्ट करेंगे? आई मीन आई अक्यूज यू ऑफ बीइंग डिसऑनेस्ट, then you cannot do a testing. I'm sorry, but then Mukherjee had his problem. He couldn't have gone to a foreign lab on its own. He was functioning under the home ministry, so he had to operate under the law of the land, so on and so forth. तो मुखर्जी का एक गलती से एक इंटरव्यू रिकॉर्ड हो रहा था, जहाँ गलती से उसका ये बाइट रिकॉर्ड हो गया और वो टेलीकास्ट हो गया कि आई एम 100% कन्विंस ही वाज द सेम पर्सन, बट आई कुड नॉट प्रूव इट. एंड देयर आफ्टर, नाउ इफ यू आस्क मी, I'll come to this, what जैसे उर्मी मैडम को मालूम होगा what we have done in our book, and I can add more to it now. Let's take for example the DNA testing. Now it's a very fantastic thing, the DNA testing as it happens in Europe and America. You do a testing today and the result comes out, let's say next week, after 2 months, or maybe, now technology has improved a lot, so probably you can get in a matter of days, maybe one day, 24. But essentially you do testing now and you get the result. But in the Gumnami Baba case, the testing was done, but 6 months prior to the testing, the outcome was known, and this published in media is going to be negative. So I have been asking people all over the world, like, what kind of science fiction is this? Is it time travel? How do you know in advance that this is going to be like this? Number two, the DNA testing is simple, straightforward thing. It's like you put in the machine a sample which you test. There is no human intervention. You don't touch it, and the machine will create a chart, raw data, which is known as electropherogram. If anybody among you is aware of this, basic DNA thing, it's known as raw data or electropherogram. It is the reading of the electropherogram which is known in the common man's word DNA test report. इस केस में इन्होंने DNA इलेक्ट्रोफेरोग्राम को गोल कर दिया, इट्स नॉट अवेलेबल, डिस्ट्रॉय कर दिया गया उसको, मुझे पता है डिस्ट्रॉय किया गया, हम लोगों ने ट्राई किया. ये जब हमने ये चीज़ें बाहर निकाली तो कंट्री में डिबेट शुरू हो गया, और दिस हैपेंड जस्ट बिफोर द कोरोना हिट अस. इट वाज ऑन टेलीविजन, और उसके बाद में डीएनए एक्सपर्ट्स बीच में आ गए. हम लोगों ने इन रिपोर्टों को, गवर्नमेंट की रिपोर्ट्स को हमने एक्सपर्ट्स को दिखाया, इंडिपेंडेंट. दिस अ वेरी वेल नोन एक्सपर्ट ऑफ डीएनए इन इंडिया, डॉक्टर ज्ञानेश्वर चौबे, बीएचयू के. उन्होंने उसको पढ़ के पूरी रिपोर्ट बना के हमको दी है कि गवर्नमेंट की रिपोर्ट फ्रॉड है. इट्स नॉट बिलीवेबल. देयर आफ्टर हैंडराइटिंग में हम लोगों ने अलग अलग इंडिपेंडेंट व्यूज़ लिए. हम लोगों ने एक अमेरिकन से लिया, कर्ट बैगेट टेक्सास के अंदर है. I give an example. I mean, anybody in their right sense will understand this thing. When an expert of handwriting gives his opinion, he or she is supposed to give reasons why they feel that the handwriting is matching or not matching. तो डॉक्टर एस के मंडल फॉरेंसिक साइंस लेबोरेटरी कैलकाटा वो साला 2 पन्ने का रिपोर्ट देके भाग गया कि इट्स नॉट मैचिंग. हम लोगों ने वो कर्ट बैगेट को टेक्सास में मेरे फ्रेंड्स व्हेन आई वेंट टू अमेरिका सो पीपल ऑफर्ड हेल्प सो आई सेड गेट मी द सम अमेरिकन एक्सपर्ट and we'll give him the samples of handwriting of Gundami Abha and Subhash Chandra Bose to match. And don't take my name, don't mention Subhash Bose, let him not know what it is all about. Kurt Baggett was not told what it is all about. उसने टेस्टिंग की, उसने हमको 49 पेजेस की डिटेल में रिपोर्ट दी है and he said I'm willing to come to court of law to testify the same person. He has no axe to grind, he is absolutely unbiased. टीवी के अंदर प्रोग्राम हुआ, IBN CNN, प्लीज गूगल सर, CNN IBN के अंदर प्रोग्राम था, आनंद नरसिम्हन का शो हुआ था. कर्ट बैकेट केम, ही गेव द बाइट्स. हमने डॉक्टर मंडल को बुलाया कि भैया आप आइए, रात को तुम्हारा बाप आ रहा है अमेरिका से, तुम्हारे को हम आज सिखाएंगे हैंडराइटिंग टेस्ट कैसे होते हैं. वो भाग गया मैदान छोड़ करके. नाउ सेम थिंग इन द DNA ऑल्सो, वी आस्क्ड द गवर्नमेंट एक्सपर्ट्स टू ज्वाइन, दे रिफ्यूज टू कम. Anybody can make out. So the story Gumnami Baba was not Netaji was essentially proven by negative handwriting and DNA reports. Today, I can tell you with full confidence, and I'm saying it publicly everywhere, taking names of the labs which are controlled by Government of India. CFSL Calcutta is controlled by the MHA. It was basically set up by the IB. I'm telling you in as many words, it's a fraud report. दुनिया में कोई बिना इलेक्ट्रोफोरोग्राम की रिपोर्ट नहीं होती है. दुनिया में ऐसी कोई साइंस नहीं है कि मैं आने से पहले 6 महीने बाद क्या होगा वो बता दूंगा. ये टाइम मशीन होता है, ये डॉक्टर हु आता है BBC में सीरियल. सो दिस इज फ्रॉड, दे नो इट वेरी वेल फ्रॉड. तो फ्रॉड रिपोर्ट, नकली रिपोर्ट देके इन्होंने ये केस को उड़ाया बीच में से. सो व्हेन यू कंसिडर दीज फैक्ट्स, एनी कॉमन पर्सन विल कम टू कंक्लूजन कि बॉस ये गुमनामी बाबा की स्टोरी ज़्यादा इज क्रेडिबल. It is where you are getting the maximum evidence. And as I told you at the initial, at the very start of the discussion, if I am able to establish that Netaji died in Taiwan, automatically the other two angles will fall apart. If I'm able to establish he was in India, well, he is there. उनकी हैंडराइटिंग मैच कर रही है, इसका मतलब वो आदमी यहाँ पे था, उसका DNA मैच कर रहा है, इन्होंने गवर्नमेंट ने रिपोर्ट चेंज करी है, यहाँ पे लोगों ने उसको देखा है, आई विटनेस अकाउंट है, लोगों ने देखा उनको यहाँ पे, automatically he was here. So obviously he did not die in Russia. And I'm amazed, somebody as intelligent and well informed as Subramaniam Swamy, he should be talking complete nonsense that Netaji was killed in Russia by Stalin because Panditji asked him to do so. I mean, is he out of his mind? We did not have good relation with the Russians. Stalin was not kind towards India. He did not like Gandhi. He did not like Panditji. In fact, he called Panditji, in one of his notes, he mentioned that Panditji was a political prostitute. He did not like Panditji at all. He did not like Gandhiji. In fact, Russians did not even send flowers when Gandhiji was assassinated. We did not have good relations as long as Russia, when Stalin was there. Panditji sent his own sister, God knows why, of all the people, his own sister as India's first ambassador to Russia. He did not grant her an audience. The first person to get an audience with him was Radhakrishnan. Stalin, 48, 49. In fact, the stories about Radhakrishnan, having come to know Subhash Bose. तो इस तरह की कहानी है. तो इस तरह का ये आप पूरा सर्कमस्टेंसेस एविडेंस आप देखेंगे, any common person, any would come and draw the same conclusion. So that's I'm sorry, there's no, I have to go round and round because this is a long and winding thing. It's impossible for me. What I'm good at and what actually helps when I give my talks, I use like PowerPoint. I will show you the video. So for example, if I tell you that the American State Department in 1946 gave this report about Netaji, I'll show you the report. So usually, with the help of the documents and images, then it starts to make sense. Otherwise, it becomes like a very long and winding thing on the phone, as I'm doing right now.
Not at all, Anuj. It is absolutely fascinating, and each and every bit of information that we are learning is the one thing that we didn't know some time back. So it's all. So I remember once listening to you when you had mentioned about a potential backlash as far as international diplomacy is concerned if everything were to be made public as far as Netaji's files are concerned. Do you think that is something that is acting as a deterrent from, because there is a
But
Russia
I don't
angle?
I think in 2021 in the post-corona phase it will not be of any problem. I don't think so that anybody would care. I mean, I give you example in John Major when he was coming to India in Narasimha Rao's time. In fact, British were deciding to we said let's forget about the past and let's acknowledge Subhash Bose as we have done with others. but the High Commission in Delhi, they opposed. So I'm sure people forget. You know, Barack Obama came to India. He president as American president. He addressed Indian people on Indian Parliament. He opened with Jai Hind. I'm sure somebody must have told him. The Jai Hind was coined by for Subhash Bose in Nazi Germany. The world will come to recognize what we are saying. They all have to do business in our country. They have to live in president. Everybody has to sustain their national security and a business interest. So they will all come around. In any case, nobody is not allowed to talk about Subhash. In fact, some of the best biography of Netaji were written by British and Americans, and they all have praised him. The first best proper biography of Netaji was written by Hugh Toy, who was a former spy, who was spying on Subhash, part of the British intelligence on Subhash Bose. And he praised Subhash Bose. Is overall favorable. The best biography of Netaji, if you ask me, is by Professor Leonard Gordon. Gordon has talked nonsense about me, but Gordon has written a very sensible, good biography of Netaji, and Gordon is Jewish, so he's praising Subhash Bose everywhere. So I don't think so there'll be problem. And Gumnami Baba does pose a problem because let's assume for the sake of the argument, whatever he said was true, that he sought asylum from the Russians. He went to Russia. He was in Siberia. He was there. And then he says he became part of Russian covert operations, because he had to settle scores with the British and the Americans who had defeated the INA and so on and so forth. And then he, of course, Russians sent him different places. He made this tall claims about being involved in one way or the other in Vietnam War, in Cambodia, in Laos, and he said, I've given them bloody nose everywhere. Some of it is actually very hair raising, and if you ask me, if Colonel Saab is there, I can probably get into those details. तो ये इस तरह की उन्होंने बहुत बातें बोली हैं, because the whole idea of some people say कि वो बाबा बन के यहाँ बैठा हुआ था, तो ऐसा कुछ था नहीं. He was probably super active. He was never a Baba. The man you called a Baba, he was not a Baba. He used to smoke cigars, and speak in English, talk about security intelligence, not mostly outside India. What Russians are doing, what Chinese are doing, and his own personal interaction with Russian top brass, with Mao Tse-tung, and what Mao is feeling. He talked about Chinese, what Chinese want to be, what we are understanding today. He talked about back in those days. He talked about Uyghur problem. He talked about the Chinese Han Chinese domination. He talks about multiple things. I cannot imagine a man sitting in a remote part of India. How would he know things which were in secret files? It is so that means he's not a Baba, so to speak. So if this is all true, so there will be a problem, because he has done, for example, if he's claiming that he has given a bloody nose to Americans in Vietnam War, well, I'm sure our security people will find it difficult to deal with Americans. They will probably have a problem. But still, I still think people will forget what, because now the world has moved on, especially after 9/11, we have become a different world. I believe before 9/11, the world was a different world. After 9/11, the world has changed completely. Before 9/11, Americans and British used to not understand what we were going through in Kashmir. So after 9/11, they have probably, at least their security people have understood our problem. So likewise, after Corona, the world has changed. So in this scenario, I very much doubt that the foreign thing will be a problem. The problem will be that our diplomatic, our Indian Foreign Service, they will not want to support Subhash Bose, because Subhash Bose is not sellable in Western countries. And it's very interesting thing about Indian Foreign Service कि हमको बैठ के तो वो लेक्चर देते हैं नॉन अलाइंड मूवमेंट के ऊपर और सार्क के ऊपर. इनका सबका बच्चा अमेरिका में सेटल है, यूरोप में सेटल है. उनका पूरा वर्ल्ड व्यू इज फैशन बाय द अमेरिकन्स एंड द ब्रिटिश वर्ल्ड. आई एम ऑल्सो नॉट एंटी, आई एम ऑल्सो वेरी मच प्रो. आई लव बीइंग इन अमेरिका, आई लाइक बीइंग इन इंग्लैंड. I am essentially pro-West, but then I am Indian also. I will not let go of my own core Indian values. And I having so many British Indian and American Indian friends. I know American government and British. Nobody asked them to go and forget about their past and their culture and their heritage. Nobody in America is asking to become Bobby Jindal. It is your choice to become, to become Kamala Harris and forget what your, where your ancestors came from and so on and so forth. So I think the problem right now is basically internal. It's not external. External can be taken care of. थोड़ा दिन बवाल मचेगा लेकिन खत्म हो जाएगा, because so old. The world has moved on. What happened in Second World War, 60s, 70s is a different ballgame now.
Thank you, Anuj. Colonel, you had one question to ask. Please go ahead.
थैंक यू उर्मी. नमस्कार अनुज जी. जब आप सरकार की बात कर रहे थे तो मेरे जहन में सिर्फ एक बात आई, कुछ तो मजबूरियां रही होंगी, यूं तो कोई बेवफा नहीं होता. जी चाहता है सच बोल दूं, क्या करे हौसला नहीं होता. तो आपने अभी फिर IFS की बात की सर। सौभाग्य था मेरा, मैं 6 साल विदेश मंत्रालय के साथ में बिताया है।
हम्म,
तो मैं आपसे फुर्सत से बात करूंगा, मैं उर्मी को अपना डिटेल दे दूंगा। मैं आप ही के शहर में हूँ सर मैं।
हम्म,
तो
हम्म।
जब भी आप आदेश देंगे मैं आदेश का पालन करूंगा। फौजी हूँ सर, हुक्म की
सर
तामील
सर
करना मुझे आता है। तो आपने जो पूरा तफसील से बता दिया, मैं आपसे पूछने ही वाला था ताऊ हुके एयरपोर्ट के बारे में, जो कि ताइपे इंटरनेशनल एयरपोर्ट है।
हम्म,
उसकी तफसील जो थी वो कहते हैं कि KGB की फाइल्स में थी, जहां पर जस्टिस मुखर्जी जो थे लौट कर आए थे, अगस्त 2005 में आए थे। तो तथाकथित बैरंग लौट कर आए थे वहां से। तो आपने इतना कुछ तफसील से बता दिया। एक मेरा प्रश्न ये था, लेकिन आपने उसका खुलासा पहले ही कर दिया। अब समझ
नहीं,
में
वो
आ रहा है कि जी
बैरंग नहीं आए थे, वो तो वहां से एविडेंस
जी
लेकर
जी
आए कि ही डिड नॉट डाई देयर।
जी जी
इनफैक्ट ही वाज वेरी हैप्पी विद ताइवानीज, ही सेड ताइवानीज गिव मी ऑल द रिस्पेक्ट एंड द हेल्प, or he was not happy with our own people. Mukherjee was very annoyed with
जी
the people in the government
जी जी
ministry. He did not help. इनफैक्ट लंदन में तो हमारे हाई कमिश्नर ये थे ना, अपने ये जो कौन सा वो जो ऑस्कर में फिल्म गई थी करके,
हाँ जी सर।
हाँ वो थे वहाँ पे।
हाँ जी मैं समझ गया उनकी बात सर।
हाँ हाँ,
स्लम डॉग मिलने वाले सर।
स्लम डॉग मिलने वाले थे। अभी थोड़े दिन
जी
पहले जब सुषमा जी ने, बिकॉज व्हेन वी मेट मोदी जी, नेताजी फैमिली एंड वी, it's a long story, you know. I will end up giving you a rambling account of it, but when we met Prime Minister Modi, you know, Bose family and I was there and so on and so forth. So we at least one demand the Bose family, you know, of ours, you know, they took forward. और मोदी जी को बोला कि आप पुतिन से बात करो इस केस में, because what has happened, sir, is you would appreciate this thing, you know, you were in the ministry. First of all, government of India never approached Russia on the issue of Netaji formally, officially. Unofficially किया है, उसमें गमनामी बाबा has made some sensational statements. Actually, I cannot tell you what. I mean, I'll tell you some other time. Fantastic statements he has made, how they approached, and it goes back to the time of the India's first foreign secretary who knew about it. अपने ये जो KPS मेनन जो था ना, वो नेताजी को लंदन से जानता था, because वो मेरे बैचमेट थे, ऑलमोस्ट एक साल ऊपर नीचे थे. So he claimed to have known KPS Menon personally. Said KPS Menon is helping me. That's what he made a tall claim, because KPS Menon was the first foreign secretary. He went to Russia looking for Subhash Bose. That's what he claimed, so on and so forth. So usually we get to hear the name of Radhakrishnan, who was our first ambassador. Lakshmi Pandit was the first plenipotentiary there. She was not technically the ambassador, but she was the plenipotentiary, but was the first, then so on and so forth. तो ये डिटेल्स हैं उस तरह की वहाँ पे क्या हुआ, लेकिन इन्होंने कभी पूछा नहीं फॉर्मली इन्होंने रशियन गवर्नमेंट से पहली बार बात करी है, वो की है 1990 में वीपी सिंह के टाइम में. तो एज लॉन्ग एज गांधी खानदान वाज इन पावर, दे नेवर स्पोक टू रशिया अबाउट नेताजी, दे नेवर अटर्ड अ वर्ड अबाउट इट. और ये भी जो वीपी सिंह के टाइम में भी डर इशू किया, तो मैंने पूरा किताब में समझाया कि नोट वर्बल क्या होता है. अरे भैया मेरे, तुम्हारे को फ़ोन फान है, तुम फ़ोन खड़काओ, डायरेक्ट अप्रोच करो. आई हैव गिवन द एग्जांपल्स ऑफ वॉलनबर्ग केस एंड सो मेनी केसेस अदर्स कि यू डोंट अप्रोच, unless you approach somebody at that highest level, you don't get the desired result. Nobody is going to see. Tell me one thing: when the Indian government is not releasing its own IB file on Netaji, why should I expect Russian to release their KGB files, or for that matter, you know, the British will release their MI6 file? हम लोग जो गांधी जी का डंका दुनिया बजाते हैं और जाके पॉन्टिफिकेट करते हैं कि वी मस्ट बी फॉलोइंग द पाथ ऑफ महात्मा गांधी एंड ट्रुथ एंड अहिंसा एंड व्हाट नॉट, आवर फॉरेन सेक्रेटरीज एंड आवर आर गिविंग दिस लेक्चर इन द यूनाइटेड नेशन फॉर सम donkeys years now. When we ourselves don't follow these things, we don't ourselves are not releasing our own IB files about Netaji, why should I expect Russians to, you know, release their KGB files on Subhash Bose? So they won't. इन्होंने नहीं अप्रोच किया. तो एनी हाउ हमने मोदी को बोला कि आपको हाईएस्ट लेवल पे बात करनी पड़ेगी. The Prime Minister, in my presence, we were there in the official, it was on television, must be recorded also. He said, I am meeting Mr. Putin in December, I will talk to him. This was in 2015 September. I do not know whether he met Putin ji, but we do not know what happened. There was no word. But in November, whatever, Sushma ji spoke to the her counterpart, and this announcement was made by this gentleman. अभी आपने जो स्लमडॉग वाला बोला था, तब आप मानिए अच्छी भली अंग्रेजी बोलता है ये, लेकिन वहाँ इसकी जवान अटक रही थी, अटक अटक के बोल रहा था. मैं वो वीडियो क्लिप दिखाता हूँ कि बिल्कुल अच्छी अंग्रेजी बोलता है, बहुत कॉन्फिडेंट आदमी है, लेकिन वहाँ सुभाष बोस का इसके मुंह से आवाज़ नहीं इसकी निकलने लगी थी कि येस वी हैव टेकन अप द इशू ऑफ नेताजी विद रशियन गवर्नमेंट, बस दैट्स ऑल. उन्होंने तो लेकिन वहाँ से कोई आंसर नहीं आया. फिर नाउ द आंसर विच द गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया हैज़ गिवन इन पार्लियामेंट इज मिसलीडिंग. आई मस्ट टेल यू व्हाट रशियंस हैव टोल्ड देम एंड व्हाट दे एक्सेप्टेड इज कंप्लीटली मिसलीडिंग. वो उसकी मैं धज्जियाँ उड़ाता हूँ अपने 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 टॉक में, उनको दिखा दिखा के, आंसर दिखा दिखा के, and I compare them with other. See, I'll tell you what, this is a very interesting scenario. Have you ever heard the case of Bhamri Devi, murder case? So
No, I don't remember.
I
there,
I did. I
Rajasthan
Oh,
did.
one, the
yeah,
Rajasthan one.
rather Rajasthan, of course, yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
no, this is a very strange country. I mean, if Anuj Dhar was not, chasing the Gumnami Baba story, and if I was chasing something about urban Naxal or some kind of some terrorist or thug, I can assure you I would have the support of the entire country for me right now. You do these things for such elements, the whole system supports you. But you do something for the good people, nobody will give a damn to. Today I tweeted about Chandrasekhar Azad. Hardly nobody has reacted. No, nobody will care about it. अभी मैं किसी अर्बन नक्सल का डाल दूंगा तो रात को मुझे कोर्ट वाले बुला के पूछेंगे भैया क्या काम बताओ हमें क्या काम करना है आपके लिए. The whole system starts supporting you when you talk about these God forsaken people. Bhamri Devi का कांड ये हुआ था कि Bhamri Devi was there was some unknown entity and she was murdered by a minister and was having an affair with her, something like that. Now the problem, the dead body was not available. Now without a dead body, you can't prove somebody has died. Now this fellow had killed her, the local minister in Rajasthan, and the body was and this was dumped somewhere in a jungle in some remote part. So the case was handed over to the CBI. CBI went all over the world looking for the remains of this person. Now please understand me. I have government files. Their notings, and this was often said in India. Why are you wasting your time and money on Netaji issue? He is dead and gone. Forget about it. तो प्रॉब्लम ये होता है ही इज नॉट गोइंग टू कम बैक सो व्हाई आर यू वेस्टिंग पब्लिक मनी एंड टाइम दिस इज व्हाट पीपल यूज्ड टू से इवन प्राइम मिनिस्टर एक्चुअली मेड रिमार्क समथिंग दैट इफेक्ट तो भैया मेरे जिंदा तो भमरी देवी भी नहीं होने वाली कोई जो जो मर जाएगा जिंदा कोई नहीं होगा तो इंक्वायरी हम क्यों करें आई मीन यू आर बेसिकली आस्किंग दिस नीड फॉर इंक्वायरी बट फॉर एवरी टॉम डिक एंड हैरी यू विल डू ऑल काइंड ऑफ इंक्वायरी यू विल वेस्ट ऑल काइंड ऑफ मनी एंड सो ऑन सो फोर्थ इन्होंने जाकर के जंगल से उसके रिमेन्स निकाले and they were sent to the American FBI lab for testing. An American FBI lab gave a verdict the remains are of Bhamri Devi, and this is how the case was cracked. तो भमरी देवी का तो DNA टेस्टिंग हो गया अमेरिकन FBI लैब में. हमारी बारी में ठन ठन गोपाल हमें ये नहीं हमें बारी बारी में हमको 2 टके की इन्होंने कलकत्ता की लैब पकड़ा दी. तो आप छोटे छोटे केसेस में अब जैसे वो आरुषि तलवार वाला जो केस हुआ था दिल्ली में अरे यार लोकल है दिल्ली में 1 करोड़ की आबादी है यहाँ इतने लोग मरते हैं और दूसरा है कि इट वॉज वेरी क्लोज टू वेयर द मीडिया हेडक्वार्टर इज आपने उसको ऐसा बवाल मचा दिया ये हो गया वो हो गया दुनिया भर की इंक्वायरियाँ हो रही है ठीक है बट जस्ट यस एवरीबॉडी डिजर्व्स टू बी लुक्ड इनटू एवरी केस मस्ट बी इंक्वायर्ड इनटू लेकिन आई एम जस्ट गिविंग एग्जांपल कि हमारे वाले केस में कभी कुछ नहीं किया गया बिकॉज ऑफ पॉलिटिकल रीजंस नहीं तो अगर आप भमरी देवी का डीएनए टेस्ट अमेरिकन एफबीआई लैब से करवा सकते हैं what prevents government of India in giving this Renkoji temple remains to American FBI and tell them कि यार ये फाइंड आउट कीजिए सुभाष बोस की है कि नहीं है लेकिन वो भैया प्राइम मिनिस्टर पागल नहीं है ना ये नहीं किया ना वहाँ पे मोदी जी को बोला गया था रंकोजी टेम्पल में जब मोदी जी नहीं गए वहाँ पे मोदी हैज गॉट एक्सेस टू हंड्रेड्स ऑफ क्लासिफाइड मटेरियल फ्रॉम RNW etc he will never go there he is aware he was in India he must be aware all PMs are aware of it वो क्लासिफिकेशन के सर लेवल होते हैं I mean, people think in our country, कि there's a above top secret. There is no such thing as above top secret. What happens कि there's a certain class of highly classified information, उसका access बहुत controlled किया जाता है और ऐसी information को छुपा छुपा के अलग 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 जगह पे रखते हैं जिसको access नहीं जैसे मान लीजिए कि not everything is in the PMO's record room. There are a lot of papers which are kept in the PM's home. There are a lot of papers which PM has access but they are maintained by the MHA. There are a lot of papers which PM के access वो RNW के पास में होंगे वो तो गवर्नमेंट के पास में जब छुपाने की मशीनरी होती है वो फाइलें घुमाना बड़ी बात नहीं है तो हम लोग तो वो फंसे कि अगर मैं यही नेताजी की जगह अगर मैं किसी अर्बन नक्सल की बात करूंगा तो कल प्रशांत भूषण मेरे को सपोर्ट करेगा और प्रशांत भूषण वो आदमी है जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट के जज को रात को 3 बजे उठा सकता है क्या मैं कर सकता हूँ नहीं वो नहीं उठेंगे मेरे बारे में नेताजी के बारे में नहीं करेंगे बिल्कुल सुभाष बोस के बारे में जिस तरह की हरकत उस आदमी ने करी है और सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने उसको 2 रुपये का फाइन ला के छोड़ दिया आप और मैंने किया होता तो आपको हमें चने चबा देता सुप्रीम कोर्ट तो लॉ तो इक्वल किसी के लिए नहीं है इस कंट्री के अंदर तो so it's a big mess actually the system does not want this thing to come out otherwise there's nothing left in Subhash Bose case today it is as clear as a daylight.
Thank you so much, Anuj ji. We are actually very fortunate to have with us today Ninaji. Ninaji has joined us. Ninaji, welcome to this very special evening with us. If you would like to say a few words, we are in conversation with Anuj Dharji.
Thank you. I came here to actually listen to Anuj. Thank you, Urmi. And I've actually attended one of Anuj's lectures in Delhi before the lockdown, and it has been very enlightening. So it's lovely listening to you, Anuj. And
Thank you very much.
and I understand the kind of backlash that Anuj deals with, because during the time that I was researching my book, that's the same kind of backlash I got from people. Like Anuj ji was saying, ki ye kyun kar rahe ho, kya milega? So that's the same kind of things that I used to actually hear from people. So Anuj, I'm just sharing a similar
Yeah.
experience. एंड आई वाज टोल्ड ये अयोध्या पे अपना टाइम वेस्ट क्यों कर रही हो, ये संस्कृत पे अपना टाइम वेस्ट क्यों कर रही हो, इससे कुछ नहीं मिलने वाला. And well-meaning friends in Delhi would advise me, like, and I'm like verbatim quoting these advice. तू ना थोड़ा सेक्युलर हो जा, ये ना नहीं तो तेरी बुक भी नहीं बिकेगी. you know you're and I'm like, secular for what? Come on, this is like I'm writing of like history. This is beyond, like, beyond the reach of people. So I would just hear it, and they would then compare me to like some authors, and they're like, why they're so successful is because they're so secular.
Yeah.
And then another, and when the book came out, so Anuji, I'm just saying that for years actually I've heard the kind of taunts that you've heard. I've heard the same taunts, so I feel your pain. And when my book actually came out, somebody, an acquaintance, actually commented, or thought that maybe I didn't write the book myself. Somebody else actually
Go to
collected the
the
research, and I just piled it. And I was so offended, because I was like, you know what? Just I want to know that person who wrote it for me. I thought
Okay.
that was very sexist. So Anuj, you at least get to hear from people that. Why are you doing this? Don't waste your time. कब तक पढ़ोगे, कब तक करोगे, इनके पीछे क्यों हो, ये क्यों कर रहे हो? I also get sexist jibes, because people can't assume that a lady in Delhi can be doing the kind of things that I'm doing. So that's all, Urmi. Thank you for, I was just listening to Anuj and laughing at his sort of experience and feeling the pain, actually. I know what it
Yeah,
feels,
actually,
Anuj.
you're correct. I mean, I'm actually basically, I'm just rambling here because not possible for me to convey everything. Like otherwise, see, if there's one problem, I speak very fast. If I don't speak fast, this whole conversation will go on for another 2 hours. So I want to quickly, you just, get everything off my chest and explain. Look, this. And that, has an effect of, this rambling kind of a thing. But then it's always better to use, in your case, in every case, it's better to use PowerPoint presentation, because then you can show the images and documents and people can relate and understand. So I do it, but now misfortune that because of Corona we cannot do those things, so I'll have to wait till such time the whole thing's over.
Anuj ji, people can refer to your Manthan wala presentation. It's a pretty detailed one that you have given.
हाँ वो है, लेकिन अभी भी मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ, वी आर स्टिल
जी.
स्क्रैचिंग द सर्फेस. अभी आपने अयोध्या की बात करी है, गुमनामी बाबा, when you call him, he was known as Bhagwan ji, whatever. He was there for 10 odd years. He was close to the Ram temple. The story is it's not just about Subhash Bose and Gumnami Baba. It's got a lot of connections, and there's people from Sangos in connect with them, and it's a long and winding story. It's not what it seems actually. It's like I keep telling people, I keep reminding, very famous dialogue in a very famous movie, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. Things are not what they seem. So this is not what it is about. You are assuming for the sake of the argument that Subhash Chandra Bose was alive in India until 85. So you must ask what he was doing, and was he aware of this and that thing? So he was aware. He was having a view about this and that thing. He talked about his past, what happened to him, the stand he took. Did he regret? In some cases, he said no. Whatever I did was good for those times. Circumstances were different. This is what I feel right now. And he talked about India's cultural heritage. What is going to happen in future. I'm amazed at what he predicted about future. He talked about Russia will fall apart in 60s. Russia will fall apart. The Germany's will reunite, and so on and so forth. So some of the multiple things. He talked about Pakistan. He made a lot of predictions actually, and so it's absolutely incredible, amazing. And I have not discussed anything. We can actually have a session just on the IB, how they have, how they handled the Netaji case, how they lied through their teeth. Or we can discuss the only the MEA कि उन्होंने कैसे handle किया केस को MEA ने. And then the Gumnami Baba is like, I don't know where to start, what to say, because he had such profound, things to say about just about everything in the world.
An-
From
Anuji, sorry to interrupt. I may have come in later. Um, what about the body doubles and all of that? Do you have any idea on of the body doubles?
Discuss
body
fully,
double,
Ninaji.
no, body doubles ka, well, since you came late, so I really cannot go back and start telling you about the so-called Gumnami Baba. But he himself talked about body doubles. He talked about that Hitler had a double, then Stalin's double. They were not perfect. But he talked about Monty's double. He said was clip, and he talked about his own doubles in India. He said, whenever I go out, my doubles take my place. So that's all doubles that I know of. He talked about, so it's nothing more. But
So,
we talked about the.
Anuji, I just wanted to add, when I was growing up, my grandfather used to live in Singapore. So my great grandfather and my grandfather, I mean, our family used to live in Singapore. And at times they used to go give, collect donations and, from the house and
Yeah.
give it to him. And my grandfather, when I was growing up, my grandfather died many, many years ago. So he told me a story that he was once told to go and give him a bag of jewelry and or gold or whatever was it. He never looked into it. He was a young boy. And he said that when he went upstairs and he told me about some office, I didn't understand, right? He says there was an
I'll just see. Subhash Chandra Bose, right from very young age, was into spiritual practices. Number one, he was born and like his father was a Rai Bahadur. I believe he's learned English first before he learned his mother tongue. That's what I understand. He became very spiritual, when he was a teenager. And then, as everybody knows, he ran away from his house when he was probably 13, 14 years old. He went to the Himalayas, met a lot of holy people, but then he thought of his mother and he came back. But at that age, he was reading Mahabharata, Upanishad. He became, but even afterwards, as when he became Netaji, because we think of Netaji means when he was in Southeast Asia, he used to put on saffron colored garb and sit, and do thing. People have claimed they saw him floating in the air, so there are such claims about him. And I remember, and there was a book, very interesting book written by Kitty Kurti, who was a German Jew. She befriended, Subhash befriended Kitty and Alex, husband wife, in Germany in 30s. Told them to leave this country, and they left. Went to America. I believe Alex died in Connecticut like fairly recently. She wrote a book for Subhash Bose. Can you believe in 1960s when Netaji was being grouped among the Nazis? She wrote a book favoring Subhash Bose, and the book is Subhash as I knew him. But she talks about all the spiritual stuff. So she recalls Subhash Chandra Bose telling her about yogis in India who are able to project themselves, somewhere else, and it's possible. So she writes it. That's clear. Now, I have a difficulty. In fact, in my book, we have Chandrachu and I. We both have written a book. So I have talked about the spiritual things, and I'm caught like I'm in a fix. So let me put it like, suppose I go to Calcutta University and I tell somebody, look, there was a man called Gumnami Baba, which I think was Subhash Bose, and among other things, Gumnami Baba talked about ghosts, spirituals. And he was able to communicate with the people who are dead, and that he used to talk about Abraham Lincoln's ghost coming to the White House. So these guys will tell him that you are mad, and the Baba must be mad because science, according to science, there's no such thing as ghost. But I tell the same people, look, there was a fellow called Ronald Reagan. He actually, his son-in-law saw the ghost of Abraham Lincoln, and so did Winston Churchill and so many other people. And suddenly they'll start believing because coming from a white person, it's coming from a man of repute. Pratibha Devi Singh Patil making public statement before she became the president. I often have a communication with the Babaji who has died 10 years ago, and he told me your future is bright. So I have a problem with that thing. Washington Post editor writing a book about Hillary Clinton and doing session with spirits in White House, that becomes a fascinating X-Files for the people. Same thing coming from Indians you won't want to believe. So these things are there. So this so-called Gumnami Baba talked about doing spiritual sadhana practices, and he was claiming that with every such practice he was gaining one siddhi after another. He was able to go out of his body. He was able to do things we cannot imagine. He said he was having powers people can't understand. Everybody who came in contact with him was total shock and awe, because he would look at them and know what they were doing, they were up to. Clear instructions: don't talk about me. And there are endless stories. I mean, for example, when Sanjay stabbed her mother, I do not know how, but this man knew, before anybody did. Small to big. And I think one day he told somebody that sitting here, I can tell you what is the temperature in the dark. The ghost, he used to call himself ghost of the dead ghost, dead man, whatever. He said the ghost of the dead knows, unit by unit, the movement of the Indian army. Before me, talked about army a lot, talked about knowing people, talking about Manek Shaw, according to him, knew about him. So did, R.N. Kaur. So this is, fantastic stuff, spiritual. But my only thing, I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in spirits and all that. I don't believe in spirit. I don't think it's possible for a person to leave his body and go into some other body. But my problem is that the same things when he's talked about others, you believe it. आज वो जग्गी वो अपने सदगुरु बोल रहा है जो बात, वही गुलामी बाबा ने बात बोली है पहले. The only thing is कि he is probably far better known than this man was. Or so I really can't understand. I mean, I find it very astonishing. So, but my take is that I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe. But yes, Netaji was, as we know him, up to 45, was very spiritual, very much inclined into all these things. So, if that kind of a thing happened, well, that's how it is.
Can I
That's
pitch
very.
in now?
Thank you so much, Anuj. Thank you so much, Neena ji. I next like to go to Matushi. Matushi, do you
Yeah,
have? Yeah,
yeah,
please
yeah,
go ahead.
absolutely. Anuj ji, namaskar. This is
Namaste.
Ainisha. Basically, my great grandfather was with Subhash Chandra Bose,
अरे वाह.
and
हाँ.
actually, मेरे great grandfather का एक Ayurvedic hospital he had started, and that time Subhash Chandra Bose was the governor, and in
Mayor.
Purvasthali,
Mayor. Mayor. He was mayor of
yeah, yeah,
Calcutta.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
the
yeah.
only
He was,
official
he
post.
was. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm from Calcutta only, and Anuj ji, I'm working with Dr. Shankar Kumar Chatterjee and Kapil Kumar as well regarding the
Okay.
Bose case.
Hmm.
Yes. So, and still now घर पे हमारे घर पे वो chair है जहाँ पे वो बैठा करते थे. We have preserved it.
Hmm.
So, yeah. First of all,
Actually इसमें मैंने एक नोट करा है, because see I traveled everywhere in across India and all that. जितने भी हमारे छोटे शहर हैं, चाहे बंगाल में हो, चाहे हरियाणा में हो, and all that, यूपी में हो, नेताजी की छोटी छोटी स्टैचूज, मूर्तियाँ या उनके जो फंक्शंस हैं, पब्लिक ऑर्गेनाइज कराती है. इज ऑल पब्लिक फंडेड. आई मीन साउथ के अंदर मैं गया तो वहाँ मुझे वारंगल से पहले अंदर गांव में गया था, नेताजी की मूर्ति लगा रखी छोटी. दिस ऑल पब्लिक फंडेड थिंग्स, स्मॉल टाइम. दैट्स व्हाई दे आर very not very good quality. All the Gandhi murtis are funded by government of India, so they are high quality. People have paid huge money for that. So but you have all these commemorations, so people have kept Netaji's memories alive across the country. And you go to temples, you will not find in temples pictures of Mahatma Gandhi.
yes,
कोई चमचा लगा दे तो लगा दे, लेकिन कोई लगाता नहीं है. नेताजी का लोग उसको उसमें रिगार्ड में रखते हैं. There's nothing I want to add. I was just talking about these holy people and all that. One, I have in some cases we have a clear citations. In some other cases, I find, well, Gumnami Baba did have a connection with some of these people, like Mahesh Yogi was aware of his existence. Anand Mahima was aware of it, his existence. And your Sitaram Ungana Thakur. I mean, these names will not make any, for example, who was Sitaram Ungana Thakur? Most people do not know. Well, Sitaram Ungana Thakur का सबसे बड़ा चेला था B.N. Malik. B.N. Malik was the head of the intelligence bureau. और उसका दूसरा चेला बहुत बड़ा था, वो अपने जनरल सुभाग करके, जो 71 की वॉर में जो पहले वहाँ आर्मी गई है आपकी बांग्लादेश में, वो करके. सो ये दीज आर वेरी पीपल अबाउट whom people do not know, but they are very well known in spiritual circles. So they were in, and also I come to know that many holy people here and there, one way or the other, talk about Netaji favorably. Now, for example, अपने ये जो हरे कृष्णा वाले जो थे अपने प्रभुपाद जी, श्रीबल
he was his
श्रीबल
classmate.
he was junior to Netaji by 1 year. His class,
Mm-hmm.
same college, Swatish. Now, Sripal Prabhupada, I personally believe that I mean, with due respect to all the saintly figures that we have, he was the one who took the message of India indirectly, our culture and this thing, Hinduism, all over the world, adverse circumstances. उस आदमी को यहाँ रिस्पेक्ट नहीं मिलती है. और उसका रीजन ये था, वो पब्लिकली बोलता था इंडिया बिकेम फ्री बिकॉज ऑफ नेताजी, नॉट बिकॉज ऑफ महात्मा गांधी. वो सब
Yes.
publicly किया. Now the same thing applies from so many other, Rajneesh talked about Subhash was favorably. You have, some, I mean, Devada Baba talked about him. Sai Baba talked about, Satyensha Baba talked about his being alive, by the way. Now recently I posted a video. अभी
I saw it.
आशुतोष जी अगर सुन रहे हो सुनिए. हमारे जगत गुरु, हमारे ये पुरी के शंकराचार्य, the Puri Shankaracharya, please go to the official YouTube channel of the Puri Shankaracharya Mutt. He has talked about Gumnami Baba. He said, I was there as a young boy in 1960s. I knew a former SP of police who was in touch with this man, and I asked him, is Netaji? He said, he's Netaji. So it is such that even the Shankaracharya is publicly talking about it today. The only people who cannot understand this thing are those who are in the government, जिन्होंने आईबी की मशीनरी लगा रखी है हर एक के फोन टैप करने के लिए. इनको सारी खबरें मिलती हैं. इन प्रिंसिपल आई नो द गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया टैप्स एवरीबॉडी, क्योंकि
Anuji, I
इनको
have a
इनको इनको पुरानी बीमारी है महात्मा गांधी के टाइम से लोगों की जासूसी करने की. इसमें कोई डिस्प्यूट नहीं है. इन्होंने करा नहीं करा मुझे पता नहीं, लेकिन गांधी जी के टाइम से जासूसी करना हमारे ब्लड में है, डीएनए के अंदर है. हम लोग करते हैं. हाँ जी, सॉरी आई
No. First of all, a great book you had written, Conundrum. To be very, very honest, means जितना उसके बारे में मैं बोलूँ उतना कम है अनुजी. From the first page, I'm in the chapter of forensic fraud right now.
हाँ.
You won't believe, I just एकदम अच्छे से पढ़ती हूँ मैं उस चीज को.
अब वो पुराना हो गया, because now we have a foreign
नहीं.
expert. We have now a foreign expert DNA who has given us the same finding.
I know about it, but
no. I have not written about it because this was earlier. Now I'm not talking about the handwritings, but I'm saying that even the DNA, we have consulted a foreign expert and he has given us the same thing in writing. I'm not quoting those who have not given us in writing. If I talk to an expert and doesn't give me in writing, I can't quote that person. In Lal Bahadur Shastri case, I spoke to 10 forensic pathologists. उन सबने मुझे आंखें बंद करके बोला कि जहर दिया है. ये बॉडी किसी नॉर्मल उसकी नहीं है, ये डेड बॉडी जहर देने वाले की बॉडी है. But I quote only 3-4 of them, including one of them who was a very well-known authority in Calcutta Medical College, Dr. Gupta, because he was willing to say कि आप मेरे नाम को यूज कर लो. लेकिन जब बाकी लोग हम नाम को यूज, लोग डरते हैं, people are afraid, तो मैं उनका नाम नहीं ले सकता. So one day we'll do a session on Shastri.
Yeah,
because
sure.
It's simple and straightforward, because Netaji becomes very complicated and rambling actually.
No, Anuji, I have a very quick 2 questions. First is that hypocrisy of the Netaji's family, to be very, very honest, and right now you also know that जो नेताजी का रूम है उसको balcony के साथ collide कर दिया है, and जो उनकी माताजी का रूम है वो जब मोदी जी यहाँ पे आए थे in the विक्टोरिया की सेरेमनी में, उसके बाद ही actually 23rd जनवरी को एक और सेरेमनी था which I had also attended, and I remember उस दिन आपका flight था from back to Kolkata to your house. So yeah, I do remember that. So ये हिपोक्रेसी, उनकी फैमिली तो हर पॉलिटिकल पार्टी की हेल्प ले चुकी है, इधर फ्रॉम कांग्रेस, सीपीआईएम, ना बीजेपी. एंड आई हैड रेड इन योर बुक एज वेल, जब सृजित मुखर्जी ने वो मूवी बनाई थी अपॉन गुमनामी बाबा, दैट टाइम दे हैड फाइल्ड अ केस अपॉन यू एंड अपॉन सृजित मुखर्जी too. But there is a video where Chandrachud Bose is saying कि okay, you take the case of the Shastri ji, and वहाँ से फिर नेताजी के बारे में भी निकलेंगे. So my first question is, why so much hypocrisy? And my second question is related to Anita Bose. Anuji, I know you might be disagree with it, but still I have a question. That डीएनए तो हुआ ही नहीं था, नेहरू ने डीएनए करने के लिए मना कर दिया था. Then how could you be so sure that Anita Bose is the daughter of Subhash Chandra Bose?
The first thing about the family, there's an entire chapter in the book, and we discuss so many things, multiple factors. The family itself has alleged one section of family. That the dominant section of the family, which is led by Professor Shogata Bose of Harvard University, he's a person with he's like the honey in his tongue, but then he's a politician. So I was telling people in America that he is a professor in your country, but in my country he's a politician. So he like and उसके बारे में खुल्लम खुल्ला उसकी सगी बुआओं ने बोला है, मीडिया में बोला है कि ये लोग पैसा खाया कांग्रेस पार्टी का. In fact, yesterday I posted something about them, in which they were alleging that they have taken money. वो मैंने वो कर्ज फिल्म का वो किशोर मारा गाना लगाया था, वो पैसा ये. तो बेसिकली फैमिली खुद बोल रहा है कि पैसा खाया. And I cannot tell you in private what they are, because I know so many members of the family. I know the real aunts of Shogata Bose personally. I knew them. क्या उन्होंने मुझे प्राइवेटली घर में बताया उनके बारे में, तो विच आई कांट से बिकॉज बिकम डिफेमेटरी. आई कैन ओनली साइट व्हाट इज ऑन रिकॉर्ड. तो उन्होंने पैसे खाने की, तो लेट्स सी फैमिली असाइड. फैमिली में द ओनली पीपल हु काउंटेड आर 3. दिस इज फॉर जनरल अंडरस्टैंडिंग. व्हेन यू स्पीक ऑफ नेताजी's family, please think of three most important people. One, Sharat Chandra Bose, Netaji's elder brother, very close to him. He was keeping Subhash Bose in his home, whatever he was, but he was very close to his brother. Sharat Chandra Bose never believed his brother died. He made public statement before his death. He said, "My brother is alive. He's in China." Now, please understand, China angle comes only in the Gumram Baba show. No other angle talks about Netaji being in China after 1949, whatever. The second most important brother would be Suresh Bose, who comes in between Subhash and Sharat. Now, Suresh Bose died in 1972. Suresh Bose had a connect with Gumnami Baba. That we know, we have established through privately, secretly, they had a connection. Publicly, Suresh Bose made public statement that my brother is alive. So obviously he was not a mad person to make. And Suresh Bose's grandson is your Amit Mitra, your Minister of Finance, Bengal government. The third most important person is Emily Shankar, Netaji's wife. I'll come to the question of Anita afterwards, but Emily Shankar, Netaji's wife, died in 1996. And the person who knew the best, and she never believed Subhash Bose died in plane crash. She always believed he was in Russia. She kept on getting input from here and there. Some of the people who were there in in the Russian gulags, they when the Germans were freed in 55, 56, from the German gulags, some of them came and told her that we have heard about your husband. So that's also there. Now the person who knew the best about Emily Shankel's stand is late Pranab Mukherjee. Pranab Mukherjee is notorious in the Netaji mystery circle because इसको पत्थर ऐसी कारण लोगों ने मारे थे 3-4 बार. And I have a personal affection for him because he and I were examined before Mukherjee Commission the same day. He was witness number 48, I am witness number 50. So I have seen Pranab Babu in front of my eyes and he was trembling in fear. So this is anyhow. But Pranab Babu went to Emily Shankar, Netaji's wife, in 95 October. Lama was our ambassador there, and he wanted Netaji's wife to sign letter that Netaji ka ashes पड़ा है जापान में उसको वापस ले आओ. So she asked him to get lost. Now he took Netaji's daughter and son-in-law out. And वो जाके पत्नी क्या उसको घट्टी पिलाई है इन्होंने अनीता को कि अनीता जो है she has behaved in the most undaughterly manner. Now I come to the question you asked about Netaji's daughter or not. See, I am catering to a sophisticated audience. The book Conundrum, I am not going to get this book discussed. I want people in universities. I go and give lectures in IITs. I go and talk to normal people. I have to have some kind of evidence in the regular sense of the term, which can be termed as an evidence. तो आपने मुझे बोला कि उनकी लड़की क्यों है? पहली बात उनकी शक्ल पूरा मिलता है. Anita looks exactly like she is from the Bose family. They all look alike.
Yes, she's from the Bose family, but she's not her. How
No,
come she's her?
don't. But then there was nobody else around Netaji at that point of time. Her mother. There was nobody else from the family other than Subhash Bose who was close to Emily Shankar in 1940-41. So she has to be. She looks exactly like Subhash Bose. That's her biggest. Number one. Number two. Well, I don't. I have met her. Of course, I met Dr. Faf. I find her behavior awkward. She has behaved in a most undaughterly manner in some respect. But her mother was always in favor. Never. No. She always said her husband did not die in plane crash. तो वो मेरा प्रॉब्लम है. अब मैं कैसे किसी को मैं हर एक आदमी को डीएनए टेस्ट के लिए क्यों बोल सकता हूँ? I mean, what are the reason grounds and all that? People went to court of law. Court did not agree. So this is something which I find difficult to handle and digest. And I cannot because Gumnami Baba said that I did not marry on all that. Unfortunately, he made many statements which were not like he made many statements just to evade things. He could not have told people, "Look, my wife is sitting in Germany," then he will be exposed. And then they were under American occupation, the Germany, West Germany, and they will be in trouble. Don't forget when Bin Laden was running away from the Americans, he was taking his entire entourage of wives and whatnot with him. So sometimes you tell lies to save others' life and so on and so forth. So I have gone through with a fine tooth comb all the evidence available. I have gone through the letters. For example, you must have heard in people in Calcutta who are not expert of handwriting, but they have become expert of handwriting. They say the letters Netaji wrote to Emily Shankar, which are to my mind love letters, they deny. I do not know what they know about love, but it's clearly love letters. They are not letters written to a secretary or friend. And I've gone through and I've spoken to experts and they told me the handwriting is Subhash Bose's. So then I'm sorry. If the handwriting expert Subhash Bose's, what can I say? तो वो जो भी आपको ये बोल रहा है उसके पास में कोई एविडेंस नहीं है other than the allegation, other than one claim कि Gumnami Baba said that he was. I'm sorry, Gumnami Baba made hundreds of statements. Several times he said I'm not Netaji also. Then do you believe that statement?
No, absolutely not. But the DNA test is
Matashi, I'm sorry,
evolving.
there are a lot of people actually in the queue, so maybe we will come back to you at a later
Yeah,
stage.
sure, sure, sure. Yeah,
So I
thank
just
you,
need
I'm
thank
to
you so
anyway
much.
ensure.
available. We'll do more of these things, in future also.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure,
we will.
sure,
Yeah,
sure,
you
Anuj.
can always
Thank
join
you so
us
much.
at
Yeah.
another stage.
Thank you so
I
much.
would next like to go to Chetan. Chetan, are you able to hear me? Yes.
चेतन जी का आवाज थोड़ा कम आ रहा है मुझे.
Hello.
Chetan ji, आपकी आवाज can you come closer to the
Sir,
mic, please?
am I audible now?
No, very much audible, sir. Loud and clear.
Yes, please
Yeah.
go ahead.
Thank you so much. Anuj, thank you so much. First of all, I'll apologize to you that I have yet not read your book, but most of the
That
information which is available
that
to
is my
you on.
that is my misfortune actually. And I'll tell you before even if we finish, there is no substitute to the reading the book. Nothing on internet, nothing on Facebook, nothing on no talk of mine can compensate for proper book where we have given citation, we've explained. I have not touched anything. I have not discussed his connection with UP Chief Ministers. Kind of fantastic stuff we're reading about what Sampurnanand, the Chief Minister, has written in his own book. So I cannot even explain because it will take 9-10 hours to talk about just the basics of the whole thing. So please, kindly, my request to all of you, go to Amazon. It's available in America, Amazon India. Don't buy. I'm not asking you to buy my book. You can go and buy Chetan Bhagat's book, but please go through the reviews the people have written. हजार रिव्यूज लोगों ने ऑलमोस्ट 1000 रिव्यूज आ गए हैं. बुक्स के 1000 रिव्यू नहीं आते. 900 पेजेस की बुक्स है. कोई इतनी मोटी मोटी किताबें लोग नहीं पढ़ते, लेकिन मेरे को रिव्यू मिल रहा है बिकॉज इट्स फेयर. सो आई माई रिक्वेस्ट, इफ यू हैव slightest interest in history, politics, intelligence, please, you will not regret. You will enjoy this book. It's a very interesting story. Yeah. Sorry, Chetan ji.
So,
I just.
gee, sorry, sir. What I was saying was that uh, about the book, but trust me, I have gone through all the information that you have put on
So
internet,
kind.
whether it's on YouTube,
Hmm.
whether it's on Twitter or Facebook. So that way I've been following your work. But
Hmm.
regarding the book, I've apologized already. So my question is, right now it seems like there are two accepted scientific methodologies to ascertain the truth about Netaji. One is DNA, the other one is the handwriting.
Yeah.
And the handwriting, the government is not acknowledging, neither they are denying it. And about the DNA, are there any other methods or hard evidences which link?
एक कोशिश हम मुखर्जी ने किया था कि उनका जो उनका हाथ का जो वो फिंगरप्रिंट्स को कहीं से लिफ्ट कर सकते हैं, लेकिन गवर्नमेंट डिड नॉट शो एनी इंटरेस्ट इन दैट एंड इट वुड बी बिट टफ टू डू सो. So we are left with only two things: is the DNA and your handwritings. That's all.
So regarding the DNA, what I wanted to ask was कि
Chetan ji,
it's in, ma'am, actual
okay,
question पूरा
okay,
नहीं
last
है अभी तक
question.
मेरा.
All right, take it.
Yeah, yeah. So the question is, if it is the DNA which is in possession of Indian government, then it's kept in the temple in Japan. So is there any way that a private entity can ask or
No,
request the government?
no, the government will not give it to you. ना, why should they give it to you? वो तो सांप कुंडली मार के बैठा हुआ है, तो वो सांप देगा आपको? Why will they give it to you? कि मेरे को गोली मुझे मार दो, आपको बंदूक दे देगा. गवर्नमेंट आपको नहीं देगा, आपको वो किसी को नहीं देने वाला ना. वो इट्स अ डॉग इन द मैनेजर पॉलिसी. दे विल नाइदर डू इट नॉट दे गिव इट टू अस. बिकॉज
Okay.
गेटिंग आप भमरी देवी का डीएनए टेस्ट अमेरिका की लैब में करवा रहे हो, and you Tom, Dick and Harry who dies, you get the testing done in the finest labs in America and Europe. What prevents you from giving these Rinpoche temple remains to? I mean, I keep talking. I mean, the Richard III की स्टोरी आपको उर्मी जी को मालूम होगा, उनकी रिमेन्स कैसे मिले थे यहाँ पे इंग्लैंड के अंदर. हम लोग कौन सी दुनिया में रह रहे हैं? ये कुछ नहीं है करके. और जहाँ डीएनए की ऑथेंटिसिटी गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया में ये है कि अगर मैं किसी गवर्नमेंट की लैब में कोई डीएनए टेस्टिंग करवाऊँ और ऊपर से टेलीफोन करवा दूँ कि ये साबित कर दो कि ये हड्डी जो है वो उसकी अटीला हन का, तो अटीला हन का हड्डी बता देगा वो लोग. यहाँ पैसे खा करके यहाँ पे सारी रिपोर्टें चेंज हो जाती हैं. यहाँ मैंने किताब में डिटेल में समझाया. In fact, a very interesting case happened regarding DNA in Calcutta recently. I wonder if you read the story. In fact, came in media. There was a rail accident a couple of years ago, 2012. 100 odd people died. So one of the person who died and his family, collected, compensation from the government, and his sister was given a job in the government. Now, turns out the guy is alive, and so they provided a fake DNA report. They proved him dead, and the guy is operating a Facebook account. He's been alive all these years. So the CBI caught hold of him. Now, 2019, there was a case in Delhi that Delhi High Court ordered the CBI to do an inquiry about the functioning of the FSL Delhi because they were taking money from people and they were giving fake DNA reports. यहाँ चोर बाजार, ये मैंने अपनी प्रेजेंटेशन में दिखा के लोगों को समझाता हूँ, चोर बाजारी में हमसे बड़ा दुनिया में कोई नहीं है, और पैसे खा के यहाँ पे किसी ने बराक ओबामा का लाइसेंस यहाँ से क्रिएट कर दिया था, यहाँ पे ड्राइविंग लाइसेंस. So there's no end to it. You can get any damn thing on paper, any report in India. You give people money or put some pressure. So there is no credibility of the government machinery in this whole case. So the question, yes, Netaji's so-called ashes of Ichiro Okara can be tested, but government of India will not allow.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anuj. Next, I would like to go to Vijenji. Vijenji, are you able to hear me?
उर्मी जी, आपने मुझे बोला
Yes,
था कि दो चार क्रिटिकल सवाल है. अभी तो सारे के सारे मेरे दोस्त लग रहे थे. तो everybody is favoring me actually. No, not a one critical.
Urmi ji, may I go? Means if
श्योर आकाश, एक मिनट. अनुज जी, एक्चुअली डेब्यू है ना आपका, तो हमने सोचा थोड़ा बढ़िया से ही
थोड़ा
रखें.
go easy.
ओके, आकाश जी.
Akash ji.
Anuj ji, I have a question. Like so,
हाँ जी.
see, my question is that means people talked about great grandfathers and stories. So my great grandfather was lieutenant governor in British self government, and he after when he was offered a Rai Sahib, he declined that, saying that I served you because of my bread and butter, but I am not to your mercy that I will accept any government titles from you. So yeah, coming to the fact on Netaji, so Dr. Swami actually put out a tweet in 2015, if I'm not wrong, and he put out the transcripts of the communication between Jawaharlal Nehru and Stalin, and that was out from KGB files. I don't know how that was a leak or he was a law minister. Then he had some hands on it, and he means he put out from that place. So what are your views on that? And second thing means I'm just keeping it short, maybe because
So
there
let
are
me
many.
answer. Let me answer first question because
Yeah,
again
sure,
it
sure,
will
sure.
be a
Then I
long
will
and
go
winding
for the
answer.
second one. Yeah, sure.
Okay. Now, I respect Subramanian Swamiji. Number two, I've met him. Of course. Swamiji knows about 1 million thing in the world. I may know about only one. But on Netaji issue, I think I know better than him. Number two. Number three, Subramanian Swami has been taking interest in Subhash Chandra Bose before I was born. So no dispute about his credential, no dispute about his knowledge. But there are two problems with Dr. Swami. Dr. Swamiji, Dr. Swami, he is elitist in his approach. That somebody, he told me that some foreign secretary told me, so who are you? It's like this. He will tend to believe somebody who's like more sophisticated, most highly placed. Anyhow, you have told me about the KGB. It's complete bonkum nonsense. KGB has not released officially any file after 1930-31. The Russian declassification has not even started in Second World War. They're still stuck in 1930s. Not a single page has come out of the KGB. They're not foolish. They will take out these kind of thing and give a transcript and give it to Subramanian Swami and somebody. Not possible. It doesn't happen like that. The only thing which has happened, the closest we have come to, and I'm telling you about records because Swamiji did not appear before commission inquiry. I'm telling about people who have appeared, who have given evidence and so on and so forth. One Alexander Kolesnikov, who was a major general in the Russian army, he said once he went to the GRU archive, which is the military intelligence, and this is what he conveyed to people of Indian parliamentarians when they had gone to Moscow. Sushma ji was not present when this meeting happened, but the others who were present. So they came and they told commission, it's a matter of record. Kolesnikov said, in GRU archive, I saw a file in which Stalin and his Molotov were discussing what to do with Subhash Bose. And this is 1 year after Subhash Bose's death. That's the closest that we have got on record. We have got only intelligence records from the IB in which they are discussing that Subhash is possibly in Russia. There are record from the CIA which I obtained under the American Information Act. I was the first person to obtain an American record from the CIA under the act because they allow even foreigners to access the records, in which they're saying there are rumors in India that Subhash Chandra Bose in 49 will be coming back from Russia. This is the closest we have come to. KGB and Russian government have declassified nothing whatsoever. What Swami is doing is making a huge mistake, and basically it helps me in defeating making this entire case look like is a stupid thing. What he's doing, he's quoting actually a person called Shamlal Jain. Shamlal Jain was somebody who deposed before Khosla Commission. See, like what happened, when they have this commission of inquiry, Nanavati, whatever, about Gujarat rights, any Tom, Dick, and Harry who came and made any allegation against Mr. Modi, this was touted as gospel truth by a lot of people in media. So, likewise, people are free to go before any commission, make any claim on record. That ipso facto does not become truthful. Anyhow, there's a fellow called Shamlal Jain. He appeared before Khosla Commission in 1972. 3. He said, I was a stenographer. I was called by Asif Ali. I was attached to him. Asif Ali in those days was, fighting the case. The Congress was helping the INA, people led for trial for political reasons. He called me to his house. Panditji also came, and Panditji asked me to type some letters. And in that letter, there was a mention that he's sending a letter to the British Prime Minister that Stalin has given a shelter to Netaji, and he's a war criminal, so on and so forth. Swami has twisted those words. Stalin has given him shelter, so he has made something else. So what you're quoting right now is basically based on claims made by this gentleman and Swami himself. If you Google search, go to YouTube, you'll find Swami detailing the same story that Shamlal Jain make this statement before Costa Commission. The problem with Dr. Swami is he is quoting only one. I don't believe Shamlal Jain. He's not a very trustworthy witness. But assuming I believe him, the problem, you're quoting only one part of the story. Shamlal Jain did say that Nehru asked me to do this thing in 45, and he did send, according to his allegation, a letter to a British Prime Minister about Netaji being in Russia. But same Shamlal Jain, his basic case was that he met Netaji in UP in 1967. So if I'm going to believe Shamlal Jain, the Shamlal Jain's case is Netaji was alive, he was in India and UP. स्वामी ने क्या किया कि वो पोर्शन को डिलीट कर दिया अपनी उसमें से, अपने स्टेटमेंट में से, और उसकी पहला स्टेटमेंट का पहले भाग को कोट कर रहे हैं, एंड ही इज मिसकोटिंग, ही इज कोटिंग इट, ही इज नॉट गेटिंग द राइट थिंग. Shamlal Jain का पूरा testimony has been declassified because of efforts made by my friends and I. They are available in National Archives in Delhi. तो हमने किताब में पूरा इसका फोटो कॉपी लगा के पूरा केस समझाया. तो I have got Swami ji on this issue. He is goofed up big time on this case, on this particular point.
Okay, Anuji, actually, I got influenced into politics and economics just because of Swamiji, and I call him my guru also.
He's a guru.
But yeah,
He's a great man. If
yeah,
he tells me about China, I will sit at his
yeah.
feet and listen. He tell me about 1,000 things in the world. I will sit and listen to him. I have written good things about him book. I can give you those things. Swami was
Sure.
the first person to talk about of the INA treasure, how it was looted. He did a press conference in 1978. This is how he came in the limelight. That time. This I have given the entire detail in my book. I have supported him. I have given the official documents which back his story. So I am somebody who has written good things about Dr. Subramanian Swami in my book. I
Yes.
have highest admiration, regards, but the only thing I'm telling you, please understand, there are 1 million things Dr. Swami will know 1,000 times better than I do. But I have devoted my entire life to one case. I know nothing else. I know only about Subhash Bose. So
Yes,
I can assure you, my stand is correct.
yes. And my second question here again would be,
Akash, we have a lot of people on the
yeah,
queue
just 10
actually.
seconds,
So,
Urmiji, just 10 seconds, just 10 seconds. So,
okay,
since we have a few quality people who are into investigative journalism, so I would also like to, since this is titled In Conversation with Mr. Anuj Dhar, so I would like to ask you about the third bullet shot which was shot on Gandhiji. So, what about that? So, here I rest my case. Yeah.
I have not gone into that case. I'm sorry. I've not studied Gandhiji actually, so I have no
Yeah,
idea.
yeah, just out of curiosity, and that's
No,
purely
I have
because
not studied. I know only as much as whatever Dr. Swami has said. Or I have read my guess will be as good as yours. So I know
yeah,
nothing about it.
because he's the father of the nation, and we don't even know about his
So
death. Yeah.
I will, in this case I would probably would like to sit at the feet of Dr. Swami in this interview. As I said, I have highest regard for him. He's a great man. But I'm sorry, on
Yeah,
Netaji issue I know better, on the death issue.
because
Not
because
So,
no one would benefit from Mahatma Gandhi's death.
Akash ji, we
but that
really
is a
have to
Thanks, man.
move
different
on.
Thanks, thanks.
We really
different
have to
matter.
move on,
Yeah,
Akash ji.
thank you.
Thank you for your question. Vijayan ji, are you able to hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes,
Vijay.
please go ahead and make your point.
Thank you, ma'am. Anuj sir, good evening.
नमस्ते. Good evening. Good
Namaste.
night. Actually मेरा night हो गया यहाँ पे.
जी सर.
इस पास में
सर
था. हाँ.
सर आपको 4 साल से लगभग सुन रहा हूँ and this is
हाँ.
the first time I'm talking to you. I'm
So kind.
very much humbled and overwhelmed. Sir, I'll keep it very short. Uh,
Hmm.
you have talked about, many people have talked about Netaji being into Paris, Tashkent, and whatever. But you have,
Never talked about his being in Tashkent.
sir, the possibility.
I don't support that. No, I don't even. I oppose that line actually.
Okay.
Anyhow, huh.
But I starkly remember you made a reference to a possibility of him being in Mongolia and him being
Mongolia,
in
yes, Mongolia,
Vietnam.
etc. These are there, but not in Tashkent. Not at that time when you're talking about linking to Shastri case. No, at that time he was not in India. He was, and that's not linked to him.
Yes, sir. But the
Mongolia, yes, but in late 40s, yes, but not Tashkent. Not at that time.
okay, would you shed some light on the Vietnam and if Korea, sir? And that is what.
रात के 12:30 बज गए हैं.
हाँ जी सर.
आप मुझे बड़ा मत पूछो. All I can tell you in simple brief like this thing that Umnami Baba claimed many things. So regarding Korea, he said that the actual Kim Il Sung, the grandfather of the current dictator, the actual Kim Il Sung who fought for Korea, he is not the same person. He's an imposter. That means the grandfather of the present dictator was an imposter. The Kim Il Sung, the actual was somebody else. And in fact, we find in South Korea these kind of claims are made like in 1990s. So I wonder how Gumami Baba was aware of these things which are being said now. That's number one. So he talked about it, and he talks about that because Douglas MacArthur was the American commander active in Japan area when INA lost a war from that side. The same Douglas MacArthur was sent by Americans to the Korean when the Korea War happened. So he, according to Gumnami Baba's claim, that he gave them MacArthur a bloody nose there, and he settled half a score. But he praised MacArthur. He said that MacArthur, in his heart, actually favored India's freedom. He was not opposed to India's struggle, and he did not share the American perspective. But I find a lot of problems in many claims that Gumami Baba makes. So that's a different story altogether. So this is like Korea, which you are asking about. Regarding Vietnam, there are multiple claims. The claim, for example, he talks about that he advised Ho Chi Minh to distribute finest form of cocaine and heroin dumped on the South Vietnam side, where American forces were. And he made this claim in '66 that Americans have consumed 1,000 tons of this drugs, and they cannot win this war for another 1,000 years. And I find it incredible that it was only in the late '60s that Pentagon began receiving news that American soldiers were taking drugs in Vietnam. And by 1971-72, American President Nixon was informed that quite a few, 15% of American soldiers in Vietnam were on drugs. I find it very incredible that Babaji is talking about it in '66. Or even contemporary, how is possible? How will he know? I mean, how will a Baba living in? See, this so-called Gumrami Baba was living in '60s in a place called Basti, which is even today back of the beyond area. Now, I keep telling people, suppose you and I are both posted in Basti, we'll work for the local intelligence unit, and we come to know there's a Baba has come to the town. Baba reads Time magazine. We are going to raid his house this evening because no Baba in Basti reads Time magazine. And you are talking about a man living in 1960s and reading Time magazine, a Reader Digest, and he's having a P.G. Woodhouse collection. He's got Charles Dickens collection. He's reading Encyclopedia Britannica or History of World by Will Durant. All pages he has marked right, wrong, this and that thing. तो ये बाबे नहीं पढ़ते हैं पीजी वुड हाउस की किताबें और जो बाबा पीजी वुड हाउस को पढ़ेगा वो जाके लंदन में आश्रम खोल लेगा अपना You all know very well कि any Baba who can articulate himself in English, he will probably go places. ये आदमी घर से बाहर नहीं निकलता था अपना शक्ल किसी को दिखाता था. He would just vanish for days and days. Otherwise, he would like a ghost. Amazing. So that's I can say to your question.
Thank you,
Uh,
Anuji. I
uh,
know that it is indeed very, very late. I just had one last question. Post independence, most of the conflicts that occurred in India, be it the Indochina War, be it the Indo-Pakistan War, I remember once listening to you that you had mentioned that there were some evidences of Gumnam Baba's influence on intelligence and on these conflicts. Is there any direct evidence or any
No, no,
you can you sh-
no, no, no. I can tell you what. Actually, he has been the Gumnami Baba, so-called. He was called as Bhagwanji by those who used to meet him. Gumnami Baba is a term coined by local media after he died. So, technically Gumnami Baba was not his name. He was probably people used to call him Bhagwanji. He used to call himself Mrit Bhoot, yeah, dead man, dead ghost, and things on and so forth. Sometimes S, which means Subhash, son of Mother India, that sort of thing. But so he's like Bhagwanji and dead man probably would be the best thing to call him. Sometimes you call himself General Death also. So he claimed that the Chinese war was a turning point, and he came to know about it, left post, and he used his influence with the Chinese to, what he claimed was, like that in 1959 or so, we had a skirmish with Chinese on the border, and thereafter a top secret study was made by an officer, and he said he was from Bengal. But by Bengal, he meant not just the present day Bengal. He counted the entire region actually from Bihar to Odisha, whatever, the whole areas he used to call Mother Bengal. So it could be General Palit. I don't know. I'm sorry, मैं इसका नाम गलत ले रहा हूँ, but some general whose daughter given recently the interview on the same lines. So he talked about that some study was made how to stop Chinese when if they do it something. Gumnami Baba made the astonishing claim that this study was leaked from the Ministry of Defense. Even Nehru was not aware of it. It was leaked to Pakistan, and from Pakistan it reached China. And Chinese, and he said China, as we know, is not one. It's like there are different factions. And actually, he put Mao not as a very hot-headed person. He said the other faction which was hot-headed, hostile towards India, and he claimed that because of his influence with Mao, Mao was not that anti-India. That's what he claimed because of his personal influence. And he said they were the ones who took and फटाफट उन्होंने हमारे पे attack करा and all that. And then he made this claim, it was me who went to the borders and I was able to use my influence and tell them to go back, because Chinese went back suddenly. Now in military, like General Bakshi, they all make Chinese did not have intention to overrun India. They were basically doing it at one point. But I fail to understand, Chinese came to India, they were like a knife through butter. So why did they stop suddenly and why did they go back? Some people have suggested it was because of American pressure, but American pressure did not happen then. It happened afterwards, because it was only then Nehru wrote to American presidents and so forth. So that's number one. So he claimed to have played a role in sending Chinese back. So that is the first claim. We do not know because documents have not been released from our side, that side, but that's how it is. He then made some astonishing claims about, there I find something interesting. He talks about 65 war, and he talks about a couple of things which are very astonishing because they were not in public domain. He says that our morale of Indian army and our was so low that Pakistanis were giving us threat everywhere. In fact, Ayub Khan, General Ayub, a Pakistan dictator. Ayub was like he on borderline case before he joined the INA. So he like Ayub, many of Ayub's compatriots joined the INA, Subhash was but Ayub did not join. Ayub Khan, the Pakistan dictator, made this claim that I can overrun Delhi whenever I want to. In fact, one of the statements he made in Pakistan, according to Nami Baba, कि ये धोती वाला हिंदू 800 साल तक हमारा गुलाम रहा है, हम जब चाहेगा दिल्ली में अटैक कर देगा. They can't fight. The Hindus do not know how to fight. They know only to run away, dhoti wearing, and they can't fight. So Gumnami Baba gives a retort to that thing that when the war happened, the ghost of the dead was in Lahore, and there was not a single mullah around there. And if I'd got more time, I would have seen that Kashmir is also taken back. So he made the astonishing claim that when the war happened, he himself was in Lahore. He was there. So that is not possible without the help of the Indian army. So there he makes some kind of an indirect connection that some people in the Indian army were aware of, he knew him. He made some negative comment about the chief of the army staff, accused him of changing the stand, become politically involved. The chief of the army staff in 65 war was a Bengali. So that's one. So leave that aside. Now it was only in 1990s that we have, now it is available. If you Google search, please look for General Musa's directive. So General Musa was a Pakistani general in 65 war. Before that, they were talking on the same lines. The Hindu morale is very low. They cannot take. They were still living in the days of Himu and Akbar. Hindus, if once the leader is gone, they cannot fight and all that. So I find it astonishing that a Baba sitting in a UP came to know about how Pakistanis were thinking about us way back in 65, whereas the General Musa's directive has come to public light only in 1990s. Now it is in the context of 71 war things become very interesting, because Gumnami Baba is able to talk about what is going to happen on Bangladesh, the East Pakistan side, much in advance. I do not know how he said that, But he talked about there are going to be a lot of refugees will come down to this side, and Pakistani dictator will have to become another Nadir Shah, which happened after some time. He said in 65, कि Pakistan will have to become another Nadir Shah to control things. It happened. Then he began making claims much before it happened that there will be a new country, and I'm doing it. I'm involved in the whole game of the chess. And one fantastic thing he talks about, कि one day he was sitting in, this is before, this is the like 7-8 days before it happened. He started talking about yeah, in East Pakistan में वहाँ क्या क्या military establishment है, वहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है and all that thing. So I find it very strange, a person, a Baba, sitting in this place talking about this thing. God knows how. But then the problem is, we have no official confirmation. According to Government of India, Subhash Bose died in 45. We have no declassification of the war files. I mean, even if they were, I do not know. RNW का file कोई बाहर नहीं आएगा 71, because if he was involved, he has given a hint कि RNW was involved in it through him and so on and so forth. So it's very fascinating. I mean, I am not able to reject it, because there are certain things a Baba cannot say. How can he know all this thing in advance, which were going to happen afterwards? At the same time, I can't accept, because I don't find any corroboration from why not a single army top level official. I mean, Manek Shah never talked about it. Jacob, I personally met Jacob once, some other context, but then Jacob, gave a different story altogether. The only thing I know that General Jagjit Singh was pro Netaji, but then that's okay. Netaji was a historical figure. Even I've heard that even Manek Shah talked good things about Netaji. Probably he was not pro Netaji in the old days, but he was pro Netaji when he was the Eastern Command and Lieutenant General. So I'm confused. I am also, this thing which bothers me. There was a story in Times of India that all the operation files of 71 war fall have been destroyed. So that is something very disturbing. This came in Times of India. You Google search, you will find it today, even today. The operational file of the 71 war have been destroyed. So why would a government destroy a file about 71? I do not know. So I'm confused. The book conundrum means I can't answer all the questions. It's a riddle. The big problem with me that, according to the research, the people who knew Gumnam about, he talked in detail about so many things like Mukti Bahini and all that. Unfortunately, I do not have access to those records. I have access to very few papers of him from that time. So since I don't have access to those papers, I really cannot make all those claims. But people who knew him, they said he talked in detail about Bangladesh operations. He talked about things what were happening there, what Mukti Bahini was doing, so on and so forth. But since I do not have access to many of them, there are some stray references we find in his 1970-71, what he was talking about. So it's very interesting, but then I cannot establish anything. So we need to have, well, first we have to establish our case, only then we can come to some conclusion.
It is indeed fascinating, Anujji, and
As of
as you
as
rightly
of now,
said,
as of now, it's fascinating. I can't say anything. I can't prove. It's a conundrum for me, because all I know, all I can tell you, that
right.
this man was Netaji is proven for us. But what he was
Hmm.
doing, what he was not doing, how far it is true, it is a conundrum. I cannot answer, because in some aspect it is. See, I'll tell you one thing. Let me just make some 2 points. There's a place called Tishiachong in China, Beijing, underground city. If Colonel Saab is still listening to us, so there's an underground, it's basically a top secret nuclear bomb in a bunker, in a free proof bunker. And this was constructed by Mao in 1969 to 70s. So there's an underground city, top secret. In case of any war, the entire top command brass of Chinese will go down. So now we know about it, because now the facility is open. So now since 1990s, the world knows about it, and you can go as a tourist, go and explore some parts of this underground city. So world came to know China is a closed country. It's a secret country. We do not know what is happening in China even today in the age of internet. I don't understand one thing. When this city was, the world came to know about it in 1990s. Somebody has to explain to me how in 1973 Gumnami Baba talked about it. How is it possible? Actually, he wrote something about it. It was published in 73. So it is not that I heard somebody tell, this is not a hearsay. They actually published in a magazine a little description about this city. How is it possible for a person sitting in UP to know what disease Mao was suffering from, for example? I do not know what is the disease, the current Chinese, premier suffering from. How did this man know the Mao has Parkinson's disease? How did he know there was a top secret underground city in that part of the world? Why was he talking about the nuclear facilities of China in Lucknow? Why was he describing military bases in Russia? And this is very fascinating. Babas don't talk about Siberian gulags. So this is a very fascinating Baba, if nothing else. It's a very fascinating story. So
Absolutely, and I think we would like to have a separate session on only this because there is
hmm.
so much to
I
discuss
Unmiji,
here.
I thought people would put me some negative. They not one of them have put me a negative question because
अनुज जी
you know.
कोई बात नहीं, नेक्स्ट टाइम के लिए आपके लिए रिजर्व रखे हैं बहुत अच्छे अच्छे क्वेश्चंस।
हाँ
आज
मैं
हमने
उसमें
डेब्यू को रिस्पेक्ट
एक
किया
एक
आपके।
एक
We'll
मुझे
keep the
याद आ रहा है
negatives on
मुझे
for
मुझे
next session. Anuj
हाँ
ji.
नहीं मुझे एक दो आ रहे हैं लाग मुझे एक मैं उसमें आई मस्ट टेक बिकॉज Urmi and I were discussing this thing somebody said Subhash Chandra Bose was in favor of dictatorship and all that पहली बात मैं आपको थंब रूल देता हूँ regarding all these negative points and all that कि नेताजी was imposing Urdu on people and that nonsense पहली बात तो ये कि जब भी कोई आई हिस्ट्री का मुझे अच्छी समझ है मेरी हिस्ट्री में मेरे नंबर नहीं आए थे बट मुझे हिस्ट्री की समझ है बस जब व्हेन आई वाज स्टडिंग आई नो नथिंग अबाउट इट नाउ आई कैन टेल यू कि रज़िया सुल्तान इल्तुतमिश कुतुब मीनार की पे क्या लिखा हुआ है पूरा आप you go back to the historical sources original sources read original thing and don't read books written by others and please understand the context and time in which something happened you do not know I mean if you take things out of the context 1942 में या 43 में सुभाष चंद्र बोस कोई स्टेटमेंट दे रहा है यू कैनॉट एक्स्ट्रापोलेट दैट स्टेटमेंट बिफोर एंड आफ्टर कोरोना यू आर डिफरेंट वर्ल्ड तो कॉन्टेक्स्ट टाइम को समझना चाहिए सर्कमस्टेंसेस को समझना चाहिए उसके बाद बोलना चाहिए जैसे डिक्टेटरशिप की बात आई अंडरस्टैंड द वर्ड डिक्टेटर इन द डेज वी लिव वी थिंक ऑफ डिक्टेटर वी थिंक ऑफ सदाम हुसैन वी थिंक ऑफ द नॉर्थ कोरियन डिक्टेटर वी थिंक ऑफ हिटलर एंड ऑल दैट थिंग नेताजी वाज नॉट टॉकिंग इन दैट सेंस Mahatma Gandhi himself called him dictator several times. By dictator, Netaji and Mahatma Gandhi meant strong leadership, which all of us aspire for. Number one. Number two, अब हमारे एक प्रॉब्लम है यहाँ बोलते हैं कि साहब सुभाष चंद्र बोस ने कहा था डिक्टेटरशिप होनी चाहिए कंट्री में थोड़ा स्ट्रॉन्ग लीडरशिप होनी चाहिए वो तो बड़ा डेमोक्रेसी के खिलाफ में था आधे घंटे बाद में हाँ मैं सिंगापुर में गया था सिंगापुर में सड़कें तो बहुत साफ हैं वहाँ तो बड़ा डंडा चलता है लेकिन कितना अच्छा हाँ हमारा भी क्यों नहीं होता ऐसे करके वही जब ली कुआन यू का डेथ हुआ था तो आप लोगों ने सारे अखबारों में उसके बारे में 6 पन्ने की ओबिचुरी छापी थी प्रेजिंग हिम So, Baba, आपको अगर लीक ऑन यू चाहिए, you want your country to be set right, don't abuse Subhash Bose. That's what he was talking about. So Indians have double standards. When it comes to Singapore, they appreciate strong leadership of Lee Kuan Yew. They talk good things about him. That's what Subhash Bose said. He was not talking in the sense of ki Adolf, you go and gas people to death and all that. Strong leadership. And Gandhiji said several times he was a dictator of Congress. So dictator word has a different meaning those days. And then likewise, I know the gentleman who talked about Netaji, imposing Urdu, he does not know ABCD of that time. उसको पता ही नहीं क्या बकवास कर रहा है. I met him at Atlanta. He asked me a question when I was leaving from the venue. पब्लिक के सामने पूछा मैं उसकी पैंट उतार देता कि आपको ABCD पता नहीं और आपने बकवास लिखी हुई आप लोगों ने फेसबुक वहां जाकर के you know nothing about Bengal, you know nothing about Subhash Bose, you होती है. I am not finding fault with Modi ji and all that. लैंग्वेज होती है रिकवर with time you can't find fault with me. I'm a दिल्ली वाला obviously I have so many उर्दू words in my because हमारी दिल्ली में नहीं बोली जाती शुद्ध हिंदी. सुभाष बोस के पास में कुछ फौजी आए थे जो सारे पंजाब रेजिमेंट के थे उसका इंटेंशन ये था कि अभी फॉर द टाइमिंग आप अंग्रेज को यहाँ से हटाओ. Gumrami Baba made a fantastic statement. He was there and somebody asked him. He said, one day I was sitting. He was recalling his INA days. He said, General Chatterjee came to me and he told me that Mr. So and so, somebody in the INA, big man, was passing on information to the British side. So he said, I told Chatterjee, you know now, I have known for past 15 days. Chatterjee asked him, if you have known for past 15 days, why don't you act? He said, and this man responded, Netaji and Mummy Baba, he's saying, if I were to weed them out, I would be left with nothing. This is what I've got. I have to make use of whatever means I have at my hand. So he was very much aware of the limitation he was working. उनके हाथ में POWs आए थे, उनको रीओरिएंट करके उनको ट्रेनिंग देके फटाफट 6 महीने में उनको भिड़ा दिया अंग्रेजों के साथ में। तो वो 6 महीने में उनको उर्दू नहीं सिखाएंगे बैठ करके। पंजाब में लोग उर्दू ही बोलते थे भैया उस ज़माने में, आप किसी को 6 महीने में लड़ाई सिखाएंगे उर्दू सिखाएंगे? तो ये दीज आर कंप्लीटली नॉनसेंसिकल स्टेटमेंट्स, पीपल डू नॉट नो, दे आर लिफ्टिंग अ स्टेटमेंट ऑफ नेताजी मेकिंग इन वन पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम। एंड कभी जाइए बीजेपी बंगाल में किदुरपुर में क्या जाके बोलते हैं वो आजकल के ज़माने में। Anyhow, so I'm sorry, I'm just getting carried away, but then context, time is bunkum. Subhash Bose meant India first. National interest में, and our national interest, as I said at the very beginning of our discussion, our interest in 1939-40 before 1947 was to become free. That was the core, most number one, foremost interest of India. Our national interest was not to promote peace for the mankind, जो गांधी जी ने बोला था कि my aim is to promote peace for mankind, which our government is doing right now at our expenses. And these people think they will get Nobel Peace Prize by doing so. No, they will never get it. Gandhi also never got it, by the way.
अनुज जी, आपके
अनुज,
माध्यम से एक बात कहना चाहूंगा मैं। सॉरी नीना जी, आप बोल रहे थे कुछ?
आप बोल लीजिए फिर मैं बोलती हूँ।
जी जी, मैं अनुज जी के माध्यम से केवल इतना कहना चाहूंगा कि जो भी यहाँ इस रूम में बैठे हैं वो कृपया ऊपर हरे रंग की जो हट है उस आइकन को क्लिक कीजिए। अनुज जी आप भी जरूर कीजिएगा, जिससे कि जो भी इस रूम की गतिविधियां होंगी वो आप तक सीधी पहुंच जाएंगी। एंड प्लीज डोंट फॉरगेट टू फॉलो द ब्यूटीफुल मॉड्स। अनुज जी आपके लिए भी जारी है ये चीज,
मुझे
जिससे कि
ज़्यादा
अगली
समझ
बार
मुझे questions, because it's
Absolutely,
completely
डेफिनेटली
Anuj.
मैं
cannot be
इसीलिए आपको कह
understood
रहा
by in
हूँ।
one way. Maybe
Absolutely.
जी
I will not be as doing as rambling topic, because see, I'm unfortunately in last 2-3 hours I have been trying to cover spectrum of 70-80 years. So obviously I'll become a rambling, and I don't have the aid of
Not at
visuals
all,
and
not at all, Anuji. It has been, I think everyone is enjoying themselves. It's our pleasure. It's a privilege and a pleasure to have you with us, to have you
ने
share
उर्मी
all
जी
these
पता है क्या
amazing
होता है?
insights.
पता है मालूम क्या होता है? मैं कलकत्ता प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस क्लब में बहुत प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस करता था करके, तो मैंने अपने दोस्तों को बोला कि जाके देखो ये जर्नलिस्ट क्या बोल रहे हैं, तो वो मेरे को जाके बोलते थे कि ये बोल रहा है कि आरएसएस का एजेंट है। तो मेरा प्रॉब्लम वो नहीं है, मेरा प्रॉब्लम ये था कि वो मुझे कभी पब्लिकली सवाल नहीं पूछते थे, या बोलती है पैसा खाया हुआ है बीजेपी का, कांग्रेस। मैं तो रेडी बैठा हूँ, मेरा बैंक अकाउंट खोल के दिखा दूंगा कितना पैसा मैंने खाया बीजेपी का। तो पॉइंट ये है कि वो लोग टॉक करते हैं नेगेटिव, लेकिन दे डोंट आस्क यू क्वेश्चन व्हेन यू आर देयर। आपके जाने के बाद बोलेंगे साहब आपने ये नहीं बोला, आपने वो नहीं कहा, आपने उसका आंसर नहीं दिया, उसमें ये प्रॉब्लम थी। तो भैया सारे आंसर हैं, टाइम लगता है लेकिन, इसलिए वो किताब बहुत मोटी होगी 900 बनने की हमारी वो। तो
Bilkul, and what a fascinating book that is.
अनुज जी
हाँ
एक
अनुज
Yes,
आपने
Divya.
सब ओके नीना जी बोलिए।
अनुज जी, फारसी पे मुझे याद आया आपने जो बोला था, सो यू वर टॉकिंग कि ये बोला था सीखने के लिए। सो एक्चुअली इन दोज टाइम्स और इवन इन द प्रीवियस टाइम्स आई रिमेंबर दिस स्टोरी बिकॉज my great grandfather was a polyglot. He knew many languages and including Farsi. So he knew Sanskrit, Bhojpuri, Hindi, Farsi. So I asked my nani. So this is my nani's grandfather, and anybody who's interested can Google him. His name is Hari Narayan Singh, Zamindar Hari Narayan Singh. And I asked her, why did he learn Farsi? So she told me that it was important in those days to learn Farsi because Farsi was the legal language.
यस
So that's the reason a lot of people would study Farsi or put emphasis in studying Farsi because जैसे
उर्दू
आप
वाज लिंगुआ फ्रैंका इन
same
पंजाब
yeah
एवरीबॉडी
yeah
वाज टॉट उर्दू।
even in
So
UP Anuji.
yeah,
So if you were a traveler, which he was, if you traveled across India or if you went even on Tirth, you should have known how to speak the legal language, which is like the language of the courts and the language. It's like
yeah,
learning English, basic
yeah,
English.
yeah.
For that reason, it was very important to know because अगर आपको जैसे आपने बोला ना जेल हो जाएगी तो जमानत दिलवाने के लिए आपको फारसी आनी चाहिए, at least the
बिल्कुल
law,
आंसर। मेरा my basic simple humble point is कि when people accuse Netaji of aborting Urdu, I have to tell them कि look, अभी भी हमारे सारे लोग बोलते हैं कि शहीद हो गए, अभी भी बोलते हैं, मैं आपको दिखा दूंगा, मिनिस्टर्स बोलते हैं। They don't understand the meaning of शहीद। This is the
correct, correct.
BJP government for last 6 years. You have a place called Ghaziabad, next to Delhi. Don't all of us know what is the meaning of a Ghazi? आपको शर्म नहीं आती? आप गाजी नाम के आदमी का उसका नाम चेंज करो यहाँ से। आप लोगों को शर्म नहीं आती? अफगानिस्तान आपकी जेब में था इतनी साल से, पूरे अफगानिस्तान में ये बात फैली हुई है कि पृथ्वीराज चौहान का कब्र जो है मोहम्मद गजनी की कब्र के साथ में लगा है और लोग जूते मारते हैं जाके उसके ऊपर। तो भैया एक निकाल के हड्डी निकाल के DNA टेस्ट करवा लो ना। पृथ्वी चौहान के इतने डिसेंडेंट यहाँ बैठे हुए हैं, अफगानिस्तान इज इन आवर पॉकेट, ही दे विल नॉट अपोज, दे आर फ्रेंड्स। किसी को ये आइडिया नहीं आया। अब तो खैर वो तालिबान के कंट्रोल में आ गया। So which reminds me that Gumnami Baba talked a lot about the first Afghanistan jihad and all that thing, but that's another story.
That is for another day, Anujji. I think
No,
we
there are
need to
many
have
things I
that
will not.
discussion as
There
well.
are many things which I cannot talk about. It's
Okay,
very sensitive stuff. He has talked about his future also. What is going to happen in the future? The Chinese
I
will make a,
understand. I understand that. Divya, if you want to go ahead.
the Chinese will make a weapon which will backfire on them. I don't know what it is. He talked about a lot what is going to happen in future.
अनुज जी कोई बात नहीं, नेताजी पे आते हैं। हमारी बहस हुई थी एक टॉपिक पे, बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग थ्योरी है एक नेताजी से रिलेटेड कि उनकी इकोनॉमिक पॉलिसी से बहुत परेशान थे वो इंसान। आपकी बड़ी याद आई थी उस टाइम, बहस भी हुई थी। नेताजी की इकोनॉमिक पॉलिसी जो थी उनको पसंद नहीं थी, तो उसके बारे में आप कुछ पॉइंट्स ऐड कर दीजिए।
मेरी इकोनॉमिक्स और मैथमेटिक्स में मैं बिल्कुल जीरो हूँ, लेकिन ये वो नीरज,
नेताजी
हाँ, मुझे हल्का सा जो मुझे मालूम है कि जो मेरे को समझ में आ रहा है कि वो गांधी जी वॉज नॉट इन फेवर ऑफ एनी बिग इंडस्ट्री एंड ऑल दैट। ही वॉज वो स्वराज वो था कि वो कॉटेज इंडस्ट्री वगैरह वो गाँव में होनी चाहिए, चरखा वरखा एंड ऑल दैट थिंग। सुभाष वॉज अगेंस्ट इट। तो वन ऑफ द सिंस कमिटेड बाय नेताजी वाज ही सेट अप दिस प्लानिंग कमेटी इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन करने के लिए एंड ऑल दैट, व्हिच हैज बिकम प्लानिंग कमीशन, नाउ दिस इज नोन एज नीति आयोग। सो दैट वाज जो गांधी से जो उनका लफड़ा हुआ था उसके 3 कारण थे। एक तो ये कि वो ही वाज इन द फेवर ऑफ मॉडर्न हैवी इंडस्ट्री एंड ऑल दैट, गांधी जी वाज अगेंस्ट इट। He was, of course, he wanted Puran Swaraj. Gandhi ji was for the dominant status. And third is, of course, non-violence. Subhash was completely in favor of using violence, freedom struggle. Mahatma Gandhi was against violence to be used by Indians, but he was okay with whatever Allied forces were doing, actually, by the way. He was okay with the Allied forces having a basis in India and run over Japan. He did not utter a single word when, Japan was nuked. तो बापू ने बहुत डबल स्टैंडर्ड दिखाए कि उनके बारे में तो भैया फ्री है, आप जो मर्जी करो, हमारे में आप हल्का सा आप अंग्रेज के खिलाफ बोलोगे तो कहेंगे नॉन वायलेंट होना चाहिए हमारा, बिल्कुल। सो दैट वाज व्हाट सो बट आई मीन एज आई थिंक ऑफ गुमनामी बाबा, ही वाज कंप्लीटली लिबरल इन दैट सेंस। ही वाज लाइक market economy, so he talked about change, metamorphosis. He says one thing interesting. He said he had a lot of illusions about Russians and communists. He was not a communist at all. He was a devotee of Ma, and he was definitely not in that sense. But then he said, I did have a lot of this thing, but when I lived in Russia in 45 to 49, then I realized that there's something terribly wrong with the communism. And then he just abused left, right, center the communist. उनको बहुत गाली दिया उन्होंने. I mean, he in that sense he was in full praise of Western civilization. The First Testament was on his tips, so he didn't talk nonsense about. He talked about England in America in the context of Second World War, but he was mindful. He praised Jimmy Carter. He praised even MacArthur. In England also he praised people. He was not against the Western civilization as such. He talked about superiority of Indian, especially our Hindu region and all that thing. And he spoke highly in favor of the Jews, Israel and all that thing. But he said, yes, I did have some illusions about Russians and communism, but when I lived there and I saw what happened in China, what happened in Russia, I have changed my stand. So people learn with time. So he was a human being at the end of the day.
Thank you so much, Anuji.
Thank
I would next like to go to Mayank. Mayank ji, thank you so much for waiting. You've been waiting for a while. Please, are you able to
No
hear me?
problem. Yes, yes, I
Yes,
am
yes.
listening.
Please go ahead
Hello
and make your
everyone.
point.
Hello, Mike.
सर मैं आपको बहुत टाइम से सुनता हूँ सर, 2 साल हो गए लगभग लगभग।
अरे यार,
सर मैं
पता नहीं कब
सुभाष
तक कभी तक बोलना पड़ेगा, बोल बोल के मेरा भी अब थकना शुरू हो गया इतना।
सर मैंने सर क्या कहते हैं सुभाष चंद्र बोस जी का मैं बहुत बड़ा फैन हूँ, पर अगर मैं कुछ पोस्ट भी डालता हूँ या कुछ भी डालता हूँ तो ऐसे बहुत लोग हैं जो मुझे अपोज करते हैं और एक बात लेके आते हैं, द ब्रिटिश आर द एनिमीज ऑफ इस्लाम, वी INA विल डू सर्विस टू इस्लाम। मैं जानता हूँ कि उस टाइम सुभाष चंद्र बोस जी का कंटेक्स्ट कुछ और होगा, वो चाहते होंगे कि पहले हमें आजादी मिले
तो
और
ये
कैसे
इस तरह का
मुस्लिम्स को इन्फ्लुएंस।
इस्लाम का नाम कभी आए मैंने नहीं सुना, नहीं आज तक मैंने।
सर एक्चुअली जो ये स्टेटमेंट मैं आपको पढ़ के भी बता देता हूँ, एक
नहीं,
सेकंड
मैं बता
दीजिए।
रहा हूँ आपको एक
हाँ
चीज आई कैन सजेस्ट यू कि कल को फ्यूचर में, आई मीन, इफ यू वांट टू डिस्कस नेताजी's लाइफ एंड टाइम्स, माय फ्रेंड चंद्रचूड़ घोष इज एन एक्सपर्ट ऑन सुभाष बोस's लाइफ एंड टाइम्स, ठीक है? तो आई एम नॉट actually that deep into his life and times. I mean, but so in future you can I can ask him. I will ask him when he has time. He should be able to join and then he can answer all these questions because उसने एक एक चीज पढ़ी हुई है and he knows it very well about it. But to my understanding, आप जो बात कर रहे हो, सुभाष बोस ने कभी इस्लाम का उसने वो he maintained him. He was a secular person. A secular person, somebody who will not abuse anybody. So he was like this thing, but then he used to carry Gita with him all the time. He used to wear his Hindu religion on his sleeve. So I told somebody, Netaji, secularism today are two different things. He used to carry Gita with him all the time. There was a story about him going to a temple and people saying, no, you can't bring Muslims. He said, no, you have to bring them. But please understand, even the Muslims were good enough to go to a temple. Now there are Muslims who will not go to a temple at all. Or there are a lot of claims being made about people who were with him. Please understand, the people who were with him in the INA, then they went to Pakistan. उन्होंने पाकिस्तान में जाने के बाद भी उनको उनके बारे में अच्छा बोला. उनके पोते पोतियां जो यूरोप अमेरिका में रहते हैं उनके बारे में अच्छा बोलते हैं. सुभाष के बारे में तमीज़ से बातें करते हैं. सुभाष के बाद जो सेकंड इन कमांड जो उसके बाद उसने कियानी को रखा था, कियानी एक्चुअली बिकेम वन ऑफ द मिनिस्टर अंडर जियाउल हक. He wrote a book in Rawalpindi before his death in 79, and he wrote one thing कि Netaji was the only leader acceptable to both Hindus and Muslims. So even they have not bad-mouthed him when they went there. There are certain things which have been taken out of context and presented. For example, people say Habibur Rahman, who was Subhash Bose's ADC, who was chosen by him to be on the last flight with him, he was involved in the Pakistani operations against India and Kashmir. Please understand, I am living in Delhi. You are living in Delhi. Tomorrow you go to US. Okay, you go to some other country. After 5 years, you become a naturalized citizen of that country. You hold that passport of that country. God forbid, there's a war between this country and that country. Whichever country's passport you're holding, you're supposed to be loyal to that country. And suppose if you have joined the army, Habibur Rahman was a brigadier in the Pakistan army. He's supposed to obey the orders of his government. It's nothing personal, it's all professional. The same man came to India in 56 and he talked glowingly about Netaji publicly. एक Pakistan government का foreign, he was in then Pakistani foreign ministry. He, please understand, it's a big deal for a Pakistani ministry top official. He was handling China desk in those days in Pakistan. He made public statement, Netaji was the greatest revolutionary the subcontinent has given birth to. No Pakistani will make a statement like this, he was the greatest revolutionary. बहुत जिगरा चाहिए पाकिस्तानी को ये बोलने का एक हिंदू के लिए. तो वो लोग दे डिड नॉट डिसरिस्पेक्ट हिज मेमोरी. उसकी फैमिली में बहुत लोग थे जो ISI में गए. वन ऑफ हिज फैमिली मेंबर वाज ISI डायरेक्टर एंड ऑल दैट. They come and talk about Netaji with respect even today on Facebook. They don't badmouth Subhash Bose. They are Pakistanis, but ऐसा नहीं है कि दो. Let's not put things in black and white. वो एक सर्कमस्टेंसेस थे, टाइम थे, वो था, उसमें हुआ करके मैं ये देख रहा हूँ कि लोगों में बहुत प्रॉब्लम है कि वो कॉन्टेक्स्ट से चीज़ों को. मैं गांधी जी को भी वैसे जज नहीं करता. इफ समबडी वर टू टेल मी गांधी जी सेड कि एज अ स्ट्रेटजी हम लोग पीस को अप्लाई करेंगे बिकॉज वी कैन नॉट फाइट विद द ब्रिटिश राइट नाउ, it's a strategy, then I understand, perfect, fine, that is, it makes all the sense. My problem starts when Gandhiji tries to make it turn into a religion. No, we will use peace all the time. I have a problem when भारत का राष्ट्रपति ये चिट्ठी लिखता है भारत के प्रधानमंत्री को कि आर्मी को डिसबैंड करवा दो कि गांधी बोल गया था. तो आप हमको मरवाएंगे सालों क्या? तुम्हारे नोबेल प्राइज के चक्कर में तुम देश का तुम भांडा फड़वाओगे. तो problem comes there. So please be very careful before you judge any great person, be it Gandhi or Subhash. Understand the context and time carefully. So,
सर मैं
Anuji,
मैं
to
भी
the
यही सब मैं भी सर यही
Mayank
सब.
ji, Mayank ji, there are a lot of people on queue, so if you wouldn't mind, we can take your questions at the next session, please. Neena ji, yes, you were saying something.
Anuji, I just wanted to add to the lovely point that you added that the act of keeping a Gita with you at all times was actually practiced in the past. For those who were devout Hindus, they would actually do that, and I know this because my grandfather, who I said had used to go and deposit our family money or the money collected in Singapore, was the same grandfather who I remember all his life carrying a Gita,
yes.
and he would keep a Gita with him. All the time. The Gita was on his bedhead at all times. To an extent, the Gita was such a symbol for him that when it came time for his marriage, they asked him, who would you want to marry? So jitne bhi rishte aa rahe the, so he said that any father-in-law, like future father-in-law, the father of the bride, whosoever will send me the Gita, whose Gita comes first, I will
Okay.
marry that lady. And the father, I mean the father who sends the Gita first, and for my dowry. And they said, how much dowry do you want? And he said, for my dowry, I just want that Gita.
Oh my
And
God.
so this is how devout people were and devoted to Hinduism they were. And this stems from the same, so this was at that point, carrying the Gita with you, doing all of this was actually a way of life then. And
Yeah.
their devotion to Hinduism. And
Yeah.
my grandfather actually was in the army himself. He joined the British Army, and then the Indian Army.
Yeah. That's true. I can add
Thank you.
two very quick points here. Subhash was, when this plane crash happened, it was not that the plane crashed, plane was like in the fire in the air. No, the plane crash landed, and Subhash was drenched in, according to the official theory, he was drenched in gasoline, and he caught fire, upper part of the body. So then Rahman, according to one account, he, tore his clothes off and, and tried to say, but he couldn't. So normally, in normal circumstances, Netaji's glasses, his camera, his Gita, even if it is burnt, it would be salvaged from the, because they actually got out some burnt stuff from here and there. A watch was discovered and all that thing. No, we found nothing. No, nothing. No personal belonging. His medals, whatever. Nothing was. He was wearing the iron dress. Nothing was found. Gone. Gumnami Baba's last. He died on 16 September 1985. Is to, he read Gita and he made some comment on this Gita and then he passed away. तो वो तो फिर सारे
Wow.
उपनिषद के वो डिस्कशन रिलीजन के वो सारे वो सब पढ़ते थे बैठ के. और ही हैड लाइक ट्रेमेंडस, लाइक वो वीएचपी का बहुत पुराना लिटरेचर उन्होंने पढ़ते थे. और अपने वो तो हमने मेंशन, वो तो साफ हो गया, गोलवालकर जी के उनसे लेटर मिले वहाँ से, तो ही गोलवालकर वाज अवेयर ऑफ हिज एग्जिस्टेंस, तो वो तो वहाँ लेटर वेटर मिल गया, इट्स नोन. तो सुदर्शन जी ने पब्लिक स्टेटमेंट दिया था इसके बारे में करके, बट गोलवालकर्स लेटर्स हैव बीन फाउंड, मेन लेटर्स बीन फाउंड फ्रॉम वेयर दिस मैन लिव्ड. So he talked about it, so religiously, but that's a different dimension, but problem है कि अभी लोग basic समझने को तैयार नहीं. मैं उसको इनफैक्ट वहाँ कैसे लेके जाऊँ उसको.
Thank you so much, Anuj ji. Rohan ji, a warm welcome. Thank you for being with us tonight. As you could make out, that we are in conversation with Anuj Dharji. So, if you have any point to make or any thoughts to share with us, please go ahead.
Urmi ji, we'll make it last one because now it's like
Yeah,
going to be one.
this will be the last one, Anuj ji. I'm conscious that it is very
1 o'clock.
late.
1 o'clock.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Rohan ji, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, sorry, I was just driving back home, and I thought it's an
That
interesting conversation. Thanks so much, Urmi, for making me part of this conversation. I just joined very late, but I've always heard fascinating things about Tanuji over the past few years. I've had the privilege of going to Faizabad and searching the place where Gumnabi Baba is supposed to have lived for a significant period of time. I was just wondering if the book, uh, which I had read about a year and a half ago, by Anuji, The Conundrum, Subhash Bose's Life After Death, uh, do we still have any more evidence in future which we are looking at where we can prove the fact that, apart from the letters which say that, or may prove in the fact that Netaji was in fact Gumnabi Baba, if someone has already asked this question or
No,
not?
we see, we keep getting new information on daily basis. Something or the other will come out. For example, the 2 weeks back, we heard the current Shankaracharya of Puri himself talking about Gumnami Baba favorably, that he had heard, he was present in Basti. Actually, he lived in Faizabad only for 2 years, last 2 years of his life. He spent 10 years in Ayodhya. He spent 10 years in Basti. So he lived more in Ayodhya than in what we know as Faiz. Basically, Faizabad, Ayodhya, not today's same place, but then in those days, Faizabad was different and Ayodhya was different. So he lived in this world, in this part what you call Faizabad, only for 2 years. He was in Ayodhya, very close to Ram Temple site for 10 almost years. So you have the statement of this Shankaracharya himself accepting it is there on the official YouTube channel. You can go and check under the title of Gumnami Baba. Now, today only I shared an interview with Dr. Bikram Singh, who's a former DGP of Police of UP. He's also narrating the same story that my father was a government official, and he interacted with this man, and he was convinced he was Subhash Bose. So you are hearing from somebody who's a very respected, most decorated soldier, police officer of our country, and Dr. Vikram Singh, you see him on television every day on all channels. He's very, very, very respected. So why would somebody like him, why would he say it publicly? And then in conundrum we have mentioned about that we got Gumnami Baba's handwriting tested by an American expert. So we got another expert, Ashok Kashyap, very renowned top level expert in India. He also gave a positive report. We have not mentioned in conundrum that we were able to get the DNA reports checked by experts. Now Gyaneshwar Chaube and Professor Pankaj Srivastava, Janashji is also professor in BHU, very renowned DNA expert in the country. They have gone through the DNA reports given by government lab, and they have given a rebuttal in writing to us, which is part of our latest book. So conundrum, I'm telling you, a lot of things have changed. We've also got the in writing comment of a foreign expert. I don't want to tell you which part, but it's definitely in a Western side. He said that no, there's something wrong with the reports of the government of India. So we have piled up. Every day we keep on getting one input or the other. And keep telling people that right from 2001, when for the first time I heard by fluke from a very highly placed source in government of India that he was alive, he was here, it is India's best kept secret, so on and so forth. I have not only me, my friend Chandrachur, who has been doing the same research with me since 2005, my other friends, in Calcutta, elsewhere, who have also been in and one way or the other doing research. Some of them were talking to Justice Mukherjee privately, some of them were doing this and that thing. We have found not a single factor going against the Gumnami Baba theory. Everything, every single bit here and there, all just keep on adding. So yes, even conundrum after writing the book, we have got multiple factors which support the same conclusion.
अनुज जी, उर्मी जी, जस्ट अ सेकेंड। अनुज जी, आपने अभी जैसे बताया वो 10 साल अयोध्या में रहे थे, सो आप कई बार गए होंगे। हैव यू हर्ड अबाउट अयोध्या बाबा?
अयोध्या बाबा का मतलब स्पेसिफिक नाम बताइए, मतलब वहाँ बहुत सारे बाबा, तो
नहीं, उनको अयोध्या बाबा ही कहते थे बिकॉज
मैंने सुना नहीं, मैं गया हूँ वहाँ
अच्छा,
पे, बट मैंने मतलब आई हैव नॉट स्पेंड इयर्स देयर। आई वेंट टू अयोध्या, आई चेक दोस प्लेसेस वेयर ही लिव्ड, कुछ दो चार लोगों से बातचीत करी।
you might think it's crazy, but
Ashutosh ji, it is very late, and Anuj ji has
ma'am,
been with us now
no, I
for a
know, Urmi
while.
ji,
So
but
maybe you can keep the question for the next time.
it's
We'll
not a
keep having
question,
the
ma'am.
sessions.
I'm just adding a point that maybe okay. So if Anuji has to go, then we'll connect. Anuji, as you said, we will connect, and I'll give you more information about it.
ठीक है, बढ़िया
Sure.
बढ़िया। वो तो इसी का थोड़ा रात हो गया ना, अभी देखिए एक बज गया, फिर
मैं
मेरे
समझ रहा हूँ, मैं
को
समझ रहा हूँ।
सुबह मुझे जाना भी है, मेरा मम्मी तबीयत ठीक नहीं है, तो जरा हल्का सा प्रॉब्लम है।
Sure.
ठीक, चलो।
Right, everyone. So on that note, thank you so much, Anuj ji, and special
प्लेजर।
thanks to all our speakers for joining me this evening. We absolutely had a fascinating discussion. Thank you once again, Anuj ji, for taking time out this evening. I can't wait to welcome you back again very soon. So I'll conclude now. Have a good night, everyone, and a lovely
Urmi,
weekend. Yeah.
Urmi, before Anuj sir goes, Anuj sir, I just want to make one statement, sir. Sir, Netaji and you both have been my hero all the time, and
अरे
I just
मुझे
want to
काम,
thank you for the work, sir.
no, I am nobody यार, मुझे क्यों इस कैटेगरी में डाल दो।
Sir,
Yeah,
we look
Anuji,
forward to
Himanshu
speak to you
is
again.
a big fan of yours. He was very excited to hear, to know that
My
that you would be.
only request to you, I take it that all of you are in different parts of the in country and outside. I am just I have stopped believing in God actually, but I keep on praying to whatever, like that जब कोरोना नहीं होगा ना, I hope and pray कि things will get back to normal. So next year
Absolutely.
is a make or break for me, and I am somebody who's not made for these kind of communication. I cannot even talk properly on the phone. I need to be in an auditorium. That's where I start talking properly, and that's where I'm able to send the message across. So I do not know why, for whatever. I mean, this Corona thing happened, I believe, in November. They noted in America. I left America like in November 2019. After my lecture tour. Then this goddamn thing started, creating havoc everywhere. So for last 1.5 years or more, I'm sitting at home, not able to do any lectures, any talk. So I hope and pray things will get back to normal in, let's say, by winter. So the moment it's conducive and it can be done, we must resume discussions and lectures, and it's only then I can carry forward. And I depend completely on
Absolutely.
people. People call me. I don't go anywhere. People make arrangements for me.
Absolutely.
They call me to other
You
places.
can
But
definitely expect an invitation in London, Anuji.
so
I will be in touch with you. Yeah.
so the thing is, once this corona thing is down, which I hope and pray is like by the end of this year, we will be able to contain it, and it's okay for people to travel and all that. I would like to resume as soon as possible my lectures in India for a start, so that I can take the message to people directly. Because next year is a make or break for us, because next year Netaji is going to be in news. We can somehow persuade one of the line. Let me leave you with one last thought. One of the message given to me, I don't believe it now, but one of the message given to us was that somebody in the system, people who are in the system, he said we have taken up certain causes and we have accomplished those tasks, and it has taken us a very long time. 30 We started taking up these issues 30 years ago. So we have accomplished our task right now. This thing has come to us only now, so give us some time to accomplish these tasks. So
Right.
थोड़ा सा
So,
अभी टाइम नहीं है, अभी राइट करेंगे, राइट टाइम पे करेंगे, मुझे मालूम नहीं,
bilkul,
6 साल हो गया.
bilkul.
I do not know.
So I hope, Anuji, your debut in Clubhouse was a good experience. So,
Yeah.
right, everyone. On that note, we will let Anuji go. It is very late, and it's very late for a lot of you. And hopefully, I will see you all sometime very soon. And I will shut the room in 5 seconds. So, in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bye bye.